Oh, you're fine. So, Brian. So, Brian is here if y'all have any questions specifically on the MFA process and how we've come to this policy, as well as where we're at in the current status of implementing a multi-factor authentication. So what we would like for you all tonight, I guess, is a vote to approve it. If receives approval, then it goes to full commission before it makes it to our employee handbook, and then the employees get a copy of it so they can sign off on it, so they're aware of what's expected of them as well.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sheriff's Office wants to be allowed to keep funds from the sale of sheriff fleet vehicles by Captain Kenny Sharp.
Hello, everyone. The reason I bring this to you, as everything, the prices went up. This year, the Sheriff's Office received $900,000 to spend over the next 2 years for out of the ARP funds for vehicles. And when we went to purchase our first vehicles, last year for a patrol vehicle equipped, we paid $45,943 per vehicle. This year it went up $7,100, basically to $53,078. So we're not able to buy as many vehicles as we have in the past when we got the 450. Our plans with the ARP money was to spend half this year and save half for next year, but we're seeing a need for some other vehicles that we normally don't purchase, such as jail vans. We have two 2008 models that we purchased when they were a year old, and they're pretty wore out now. They've got good miles, but they're old. We also have a 2006 Chevy bus that we purchased new in 2006 that we, as soon as we purchased it, we started having maintenance issues with it. We actually tried to return it under the lemon law, but since we're a government agency, they are exempt from us, and which Jay will probably remember that. We've went through years and years. John, just to get it ready so hopefully we could sell it, spent $2,500 on air conditioning just a few months ago, and he's asked us not to drive it too much till we can sell it. It's pretty bad shape, and it's only got 16,000 miles, but that shows you how bad it's been over the years. So what we would like to do, instead of coming to commission, the budget committee, asking for additional funds to buy the jail vans. To buy two vans without any kind of equipment are about $88,000. We would like to sell the bus and some other cruisers in the next 60 to 90 days and basically use that money to replace the jail vans. Also, we have a need for stocking some emergency equipment. Over the years, most of the emergency equipment we buy have a 5-year warranty, but as you can see, what we're surplusing, like this year we've surplused a few 11 model Crown Vics that we used to use for patrol. So if a light bar goes out because it got moisture in it, or just whatever, just wear and tear, after 5 or 6 years, we have to come up with money to replace a light bar. So we would like to stock some light bars and some other equipment to be able to have them on hand. So by being able to sell some vehicles and possibly go into budget committee in the next month or two and asking for that to be placed in a vehicle purchase code would really do us a lot of good, and hopefully would keep us from asking more money from commission to out of the capital. I think this might be a good program that we could test for the next year, and maybe going forward, may be able to replace some vehicles that we normally wouldn't be able to, or also keep from asking for additional monies because of the prices. We try to buy 10 vehicles a year, and now we're going to be able to only buy 8.5 using the funds that we normally get.
Oh, typically, the request comes out of Budget Committee first, and I think we have our Finance Director here tonight, too. I don't know if he wants to speak on it, or,
Well, actually, the sheriff's office had emailed purchasing, and Catherine emailed me about it in June, about this request. So I spoke with audit, and right now, when any sheriff vehicle that's bought in the drug fund stays in the drug fund, we receive any surplus vehicles back in the drug fund. But in general fund, it rolls into fund balance. It's received in proceeds from sale of capital assets. Like, for example, this year, the sheriff has sold, we have surplus 9 vehicles and made $11,246. And that's a lot, I think, because some years in this budget code, we had $3,000, so we're not selling any vehicles, which makes me think that honestly, we have done a really good job of improving our fleet the last 5 years with sheriff and EMS, that we have more vehicles to surplus now that, since we bought, we bought 10 a year, I guess. Is it 10?
Pretty much.
For the last 5 years. So, and we like he said, $900,000 of ARP funds, which we thought were buying 20, but I understand things have gone up a lot. But those funds are rolling into, like I said, a revenue code, which rolls into fund balance. Commission can restrict those funds. It wouldn't really be a restriction. It'd be more like an assignment if you wanted to for the sheriff vehicles. Some years it would amount to some dollars, and then other years it would take a while to actually build to be able to purchase one vehicle, let alone very many. But some parts, possibly.
Yeah, one thing that, like the bus, I would anticipate that it may bring 20,000, so it'll be a pretty good boost for us. And also, we have 7 new Ford Explorers that are coming in for patrol, probably within the next week or so. As soon as we get them online, we can surplus probably 7 or 8 more vehicles. And so we do have like some Dodge Chargers that we'd like to get rid of. They will bring more than the Crown Vics. They all have pretty much 130 to 160,000 miles. Some have ticking in the engines, things like that. We're still using them. But even with that, they still bring better money than the Crown Vics did. So we can anticipate probably $3,500 to $4,500 a piece on those. And it just kind of gets us closer on what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I will say one more thing too. In June of 21, we did sell the boat for the sheriff's office. That it brought $28,000, and we gave that back to the sheriff's department to use for firearms.
Simulator.
Yeah, so we have done that in the past with some of the more expensive items, but normally these vehicles don't bring a whole lot of money.
And
But
what was the comment from the audit committee on this? Is this
that the funds in every county, if it's used in the general fund, we use rollover funds. Basically, we use the governor's grant. It should roll back into the general fund. I mean, that doesn't mean commission can't make the decision to assign this for the sheriff's vehicles. But it rolls in the general fund, which is basically what we're buying vehicles with anyway, is fund balance in the past, except for this year with ARP funds.
okay?
So,
Discussion? Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Isbell. With the supply chain issues and everything right now, is this something that you feel like the county would need to go ahead and commit to, so you could at least order the vehicles and then try to sell to recoup the money after the fact, or?
No, not necessarily. If as far as going ahead and getting something, I can use my ARP funds that we already have in hand, and that maybe once we get the sale from the bus and some other vehicles, we could buy something else that we're going to need for next year. So it's just replacing one with the other. I don't think it's going to be a huge revenue, but we're totally open to coming before budget each time to get the money transferred into a code or whatever we need to do to ask for the money. There's not really a time frame in it. I would like to get started as quick as we can so we could go ahead and list the bus. And we do have, we went to the budget committee last month to purchase 2 undercover vehicles. We've done that, and now we're on the next month's agenda, we will be selling 2 vehicles to go back in that code. So we'd just like to be able to at least kind of get a blessing and try to go forward, and so we can kind of make our plans.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Conceptually, I agree with what Captain Sharp and the Sheriff's Department's wanting to do, and I like the model of, like Robbie said, I don't know, we can't put it in a restricted code. It would just be an assigned fund, right? I don't want to circumvent the process in terms of it going through budget or where or finance or whatever. However, if this is something that is, and we've got a couple of members of the budget committee here, even the chair here, if that's something they would be okay with putting on the full commission agenda to look at, I would be up to whatever they say, but Captain Sharp, really quick, your current inventory, you have current inventory that you're wanting to sell?
Yes,
that
we
you need to
have.
sell?
Actually, right now, I could sell the bus and probably 2 cars that are out of service with damage that'll bring decent money because they're Dodge Chargers, and then probably 3 Crown Vics. Once we get the other 7 in and equipped, I should be able to replace maybe 7 or 8 of those. So I would say maybe by June I could probably sell 10 to 12 vehicles.
And you had mentioned this wouldn't be kind of like an every year thing, because when your fleet's fairly new, you really don't have a need to sell.
That's correct. It'd just be, kind of a temporary thing just to try to get back on our feet. The biggest issue, I think, and of course this could be avoided, we could come to commission and ask for the money for the 2 vans for the jail, but with equipment and everything, you're probably talking $95,000 to $105,000. And if we could try to do some with our surplus, I'd as soon try to do that first.
When do you plan on selling that inventory?
We'll start pretty much by next month.
I know I have to go through purchasing to sell it. Any other discussion? The one thing that I want to make sure from the finance director before we take this up and it moves on to full commission, and I guess maybe budget will be there and be well versed on it by then, is make sure that we don't have any type of audit finding by doing this, that we do it. Because we've been so good in the last few years about no audit findings, and just, I want to make sure that we're okay.
As long as you spend the funds on, if you assign these funds for the sheriff to buy vehicles, then they have to spend those funds on that. They can't go out and purchase guns or whatever, that would be an audit finding, obviously, but if commission votes to set aside these funds for the purchase of vehicles and parts, then that's all it can be spent on.
Okay.
I have a question. So, and I don't think it's happened for some time, but Lieutenant Owens used to have a firearms class that he would invite the public, and they would collect some funding. Where would that money go to? Did it go to a specific?
We haven't done one of those classes since I've been the deputy or the finance. I know he did a class up here for employees.
It was free though.
That was free, yes. I don't know that.
I know he's done one in the last 2 or 3 years, because I remember bringing the money over.
Well, I would have to look for that. I'll see if I
I'm
can
just
find
curious
that. I'll
of
let you know.
what that goes into. Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So,
We have a motion, do we have a second?
what is the motion, Mr. Chairman?
To allow these funds to be put into a restricted code.
They can't be in a restricted code,
What,
though.
what kind of code was that? An assigned code for future use for vehicle purchases. Isn't that what the intent was?
Yes, sir.
It's the sale of the surplus vehicles for that money to roll into
Just-
that
But
account.
we would be even grateful to go to budget each time to, get it put in the right code and all that. We'd just like to have the opportunity.
Commissioner Palmer.
Did I understand understanding you said just for 1 year, or is this?
Just kind of a temporary, but we can, you know, if you want to put a time stipulation on it, that's fine with us. We're just trying to avoid coming to commission and asking for more capital money at this time.
And this would really just be on an as-needed.
Yeah, as needed. It wouldn't be all the time.
Okay, and the money that you get out of that, you'll have to put more funds with it? So you're just
On
supplementing?
some, yes. hmm
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think we'll have enough to buy, like Robbie said, brand new vehicles and stuff, but it'll help go towards our ARP funds or whatever to buy some. Because like I said, that's the only way we're going to be able to replace some vehicles without asking for more.
okay. We've got members of the Budget Committee in the audience. If those members have a question or a comment, it's most welcome.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Budget Committee.
Come on up.
Jeff,
Come on front, Mr. Chairman.
I personally don't see an issue with the request. If it wants to go ahead and pass by this committee and go on the full commission, I know I, for one, would certainly support it, but
I'll second it if we don't have a second on the floor.
Do we have a motion second? Motion by Commissioner Yeager, seconded by Commissioner Mays.
And I would just ask Captain Sharp, like, if full commission does pass this, is just when it does come time to sell them or go buy those things that, you know, keep them up to, you know, aware of
Absolutely.
what you're.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Drug Court Grant Opportunity by Commissioner Val and Judge Spitzer.
Good evening. How are y'all doing? I'm Ryan Spitzer. I'm the Circuit and Criminal Court Judge. I know most of y'all personally. We have an opportunity in front of us. 2 new grants have come available, and I'm here today to ask for permission to apply for those 2 grants. The county has a grant writer, Mr. Prince. We've talked with him. We've worked with the Sheriff's Department and Ridgeview and other stakeholders about this process. I'd like to talk to you a little bit, just real briefly, about drug court and what it does and what we're hoping to do with some of these funds. So the recovery court, used to be called the drug court, takes folks that are really close to going to prison. They've already got extensive criminal histories. They're committing multiple felonies usually. They're right on the verge of having to go to prison, and diverts them instead to an intensive drug court program where we meet with them every single week. So every Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're meeting to talk about how they're doing in recovery. We're sending them to intensive inpatient treatments, residential halfway houses, all those sorts of things. They come into court every morning at roughly 8:30 every Monday morning to talk with me directly in open court about how things are going with their recovery process, anything we can help them do in terms of finding jobs, getting their driver's license back, trying to get their life back together, reconnect with family, all that sort of thing. What's really happened is government has gotten a lot smarter over the last 20 years and figured out that it's really expensive to incarcerate folks in prison or incarcerate folks in jail and to have them just get right back out and commit new crimes. And it's much more cost effective, better for the public, better for us all in terms of our community safety, and also if you're from a faith perspective, being able to help folks get their lives back together, reconnect with their loved ones. So this is a way of trying to do that. Now, we don't allow violent offenders. We don't allow anybody with any sexual offenses. So this is not the very worst of the worst folks that really need to go to prison. This is like that next category under. They're really at a great risk of going to prison. We want to send them to an intensive rehabilitation. Because as y'all know, drugs drive the vast majority of crime in our community. Whether it's, somebody crawling under your church van and cutting the catalytic converter off, or breaking into your house while you're at work, or whatever the problem is, drugs drive a lot of that. Now, at any one time, we have 12 to 15 folks going through our drug court program here. We've got 2 that are about to graduate. that have really turned their lives around. In fact, they go give a speech at the Anderson County Jail to fellow former inmates about their own recovery journey to try to inspire people to change their lives. What's happened now is because governments recognize this as being a really effective tool, and every judicial district in the state has a drug court. It's a fundamental government function statewide. Everybody's got one except for one district, and I know that judge, and he's actively working trying to get his up and running because it's such a big part of this overall push you see across the country to try to help people recover and stop committing crime, which is better for all of us. And they're sending more and more funding that direction. Instead of building more prisons, there's more grant money coming available. So what we've got now is 2 new grants that have just opened up. The first one is due the first week of March, March 6th, I think it is. It would give up to $400,000 for 5 years, up to 5 years. And its purpose is specifically to expand an already existing drug court. So they would want to take our numbers, they would want to see us move our numbers from the 12 or 15 folks we've got now at any one time up to about 40 people at a time. So we could make a much bigger impact on drug use in our community. They would give us resources to do that. The second grant is due in April. It's a little bit less money, and it requires a 25% match from local government. The first one does not require a match at all. It's just we apply for it. If we're fortunate enough to get it, we've got money to work with. We're looking for authorization from the county to apply for both of those grants. Either way we go, if we're successful with either one of them, on the back end, they're going to want to know how are we going to make accommodations to continue our growth expansion. So if we've built up better recovery resources and the grant ends, they're going to want to know how we continue that. This is me being completely upfront about how the process works. So what we would be doing is scrambling around at the end of that time frame trying to find more grant money. And if you see this big trend nationwide towards pushing more money to recovery efforts, we shouldn't have any trouble coming up with more grant money 5 years down the road because everything's going that way. If that doesn't pan out, we would have to come to the county commission and ask you and show you how effective the program has been. Are we actually able to turn folks' lives around? Do y'all think it's cost effective? And then ask you to help us support it, 6 years down the road once the 5-year grant's over. That's sort of how the process would work. What are we looking to do actually on the ground in Anderson County? We want to take advantage of Pod 1. The vacant unit at the jail. Captain Val was kind enough to take us out for a tour of that facility. We got to look at both of the bays. I was familiar with it already from my time as a prosecutor. In fact, we've got a bunch of materials stored out there right now, or the DA's office now does. But we would be able to make use of those 2 bays. They're big open dorm style bays. And for one dorm, we would be able to hopefully open it up and start the work release program, which is a huge part of the Tier 2 accreditation that the jail just got, which is a huge deal for them. They're one of only 2 jails, I think, in the state so far to have that really high Tier 2 certification. But as part of that, they're being strongly encouraged to start a work release program. So those are inmates on minimum security level that if they qualify and they have jobs outside of the jail, they can leave at 7 in the morning, go to work, come back, spend the night at the jail. It's got a lot of benefits for the jail, which I'm sure Captain Val can talk about. But the other pod we would be able to use for folks in our recovery court program. There's a couple of conference rooms and some office space there in Pod 1 that we could use for group meetings and that sort of thing. We could hire a full-time counselor to actually be there at the jail throughout the day business hours, giving classes, helping people with group meetings and all that sort of thing. We could have a case manager so that now once we get up to 35 or 40 folks, we need somebody just full-time keeping up with where are they at, what are they doing, are they working, are they staying in contact with family, are they going to AA meetings, are they going to regular group meetings? Are they showing up for work? Are they trying to get their driver's license together? What are they doing to get their feet back under them so they're not committing new crimes? So we would have a counselor, and we would have a case manager, both of them hopefully working full-time to help these folks in our recovery. What this means at the end of the day is we get to take a vacant facility, put it to use helping people with their recovery, and then ultimately reduce crime in Anderson County. Shane, you got anything you want to add?
That pretty much put it all in a nutshell. We were gonna have to try to do this at some point anyway with our work release program for our new accreditation. And Sheriff Barker is on board with it. Was very interested in how we could get this up and rolling, and then the grant opportunities came along to kind of answer that question. So it's something that we certainly want to try, and we think that it can be a big benefit. And if not, then, you know, we still got the work release program through the state, but we think it'd be very beneficial.
Question? Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Isbell. The smaller grant, what's the maximum we could receive for that?
I just got done in court and I don't have my materials with me,
okay.
but it's somewhere in the $250 a year range, just guessing off my
So,
recollection.
so if we got that, then the county would need to match up to about 62.5 or something.
Yes, sir. If we get approved for that, and y'all may decide you don't want us to even apply for one that's got matching, and I would totally understand that because that's an out-of-pocket cost for the county. But if you said that you'd prefer we just apply for the bigger grant, that's an outright grant without any matching, that would completely make sense. I just hate to let this window of opportunity pass us by.
But applying for both it's not going to reduce the chances of getting one or the other. We can apply for both kind of separately.
I think if you got the first one, they probably wouldn't really consider you for the second.
Okay.
And if they pass on you on the first, you'd be in the group for the second to be looked at,
Okay.
would be my take. But these, by the way, are administered by two different entities. One's substance abuse organization, and the other one I think is DOJ,
BGA.
BGA, federal grant source.
Commissioner Mays.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would actually like to make a motion to authorize Judge Spitzer, Ms. Gadd, and I don't know if you'll be involved in the grant process or not, but to apply for both grants that they are seeking. And whatever that match is, we'll cross that when we get there, but definitely fully support them seeking these two opportunities for sure.
And that would be the recovery court, the Anderson County Recovery Court.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Anderson. Any other discussion?
Would it help the chances if we already had a kind of tacit approval for a match, if commission was on the record saying that they would be willing to match up to 25% going into the grant?
They look for a lot of things in the application that we put together. They look for the science supporting our approaches. They look for the data for crime and substance use here in Anderson County. And yes, they look for how are we going to keep the program going after, or do we yet have buy-in from the county to match if that's the one we're applying for.
I'm good with, if you want to amend the motion to
If it's okay
that.
with Commissioner Mays, let's amend the motion and say we're committing to match up to 25% of the maximum award.
Yeah.
That would be a huge step forward for recovery in Anderson County, and I appreciate your willingness to consider that.
I do want to say one thing. The program in of itself, just, if one's successful out of the hundreds that go through it, it is literally worth every ounce of time and effort they put in there. I've seen a girl that I went to school with, graduated with, was friends with, just took a turn. Drugs impact a lot of people. She is a very successful graduate of that program. Cuts hair now, happily married. Someone who just explodes with happiness and joy, and just kudos to what Judge Spitzer's doing. Judge Elledge was very passionate about it as well. I know, having been in the system in the past, not the criminal system as a client, but as an employee, seeing the pain that it would go through them having to revoke someone or kick them out of drug court. But I really want to say something about Ms. Gadd. She has, I'm not sure how many years you've been involved. I mean, since its inception.
2007.
Yeah. Just, you deserve so much praise and so much respect because of fighting the fight at the ground level that you do, and the people that you try to help. And I'm telling you, the world would be a better place if we had a bunch of, I want to say Barrett, but I want to say Winnie, fighting the fight, because it's truly just, it's a calling, and I just want to say thank you, as not as a commissioner, but as just a citizen, and as someone in my family, having a family that's dealt with that. So thank you.
I rely on her every day, and I agree completely.
I've got a question of the finance director while he's here, because we're talking about spending money again, you know, from the operations committee. Where would, and I'm assuming it'd probably come out of general fund, or where would these funds come from?
It would come from unassigned, or possibly, we have a couple of restricted or committed codes for drug use, or one's a DUI code that has $138,000 in it right now that we could pull from. I'd have to get an opinion on that, but I have some ideals, so.
Okay.
ARPA work for that, like a one-time, let's say if they needed
Yes,
$75,000.
that, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Another possibility.
Any other questions, comments? Personally, I think since 2011, 2012, I talked to the law director about doing a work release program, and we got some of this stuff started because I can see the benefits to it. And for the people at home, that building that we've raised taxes on has sat there empty, or we just been putting files in it. Finally, it's going to be used. I mean, I get a lot of grief over that. About that building, you know, we spent that money and while we're not using it, so this be an opportunity to put that building to work.
One of the interesting things I learned through this process, and especially touring the jail, is the ins and outs of people is a huge problem for the sheriff's department, because that's how contraband is smuggled in.
Exactly.
And so folks serving weekends, where we try to give them weekends to do their jail time instead of having to lose their jobs, that's actually a really big hardship on the sheriff's department. And if we can take these really low security risk folks and put them in one pod and let them go on the day release program, where they're actually being transported by a sheriff's deputy to work and back, that really cuts down on all of that burden and contraband issues.
It's a burden on employers too. They employ
Absolutely.
these people that just, you know, that have a small violation and then they can't go to work and then they can't pay their bills. Does anybody from the budget committee that's here want to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, we got thumbs up. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion's unanimous.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you, Jim.
Mayor's report.
It's always hard getting up after sitting on those hard benches. The first item on the agenda is the annual authorization that authorizes the county mayor to execute the annual payment in lieu of tax agreement with the U.S. Department of Energy. Enclosed in your packet is the assessment amount that is provided by the property assessor. And then also enclosed in your packet is a spreadsheet that shows, I know that question has come before the committee over prior years, that annual payment and the number of acres that are billed per year. And so what this does is, with your authorization, then that authorizes me to send the letter that is the request for payment. That amount this year is $640,393.14. A little side note is also not reflected in the payment in lieu of. There is property that is Oak Ridge Project LLC that is Lawlerwood Y12. And that is collected through the trustee's office in the amount of $892,039. So, you know, a lot of times we also don't discuss that, but that is another payment that the county receives. It's just not an in lieu of payment.
Okay. Discussion, motion?
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Yeager, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Any discussion or any discussion? Commissioner Wandale.
Thank you, Mayor. Chairman and members of the Operations Committee, I've followed this for many years. You do have the chart in front of you from 97 to 2022, and the mayor is correct. There's some properties that have been taken off, but I think they've went from 11,000 and some change far as acreage down to, well, the difference is 163.84 acres from 97 to 2022. I don't know if the Woods property the mayor referenced is all that 163.84 acres or not, but what I want to tell you all is over the years attending the Energy Community Alliance meetings, the one thing that become abundantly clear to me is you get what you ask for. And I think the mayor does a great job, and I don't think the mayor's doing anything wrong. She's doing her job and her due diligence, but I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and I'm not wanting to stop this payment this year or anything, but it always intrigues me on the payment in lieu of taxes. How's it figured? I understand the property assessor punches the buttons and says this is what's owed, but the part that's missing is our interaction. Us saying, well, what's Savannah River get? What's, you know, the folks out west get in Nevada, what do they get? And what you'll find is some people get millions of dollars and some people get 600,000. That 600,000 is us. And I believe until we decide to start looking at it from a business perspective, and just to give some feedback, the claim is this. They pay on the 1955 Atomic Energy Act where the property was agriculture. Well, the property's not agriculture anymore. There's a lot of it that's been used, and I think it's due to be looked at for us to get more money. Now, there was one time where we did this before as a county. It was Mayor David Bolin, and he got $13.3 or $4 million because he went to the federal government and he asked for a proper payment to Anderson County. So again, I'm not here, and I don't want to interrupt the mayor. Mayor has great relationships with DOE, and she's doing her job. It's not her fault. She's done nothing wrong. But I do want to develop in the future, with your help, how do we develop? Is it the operations committee? Is it the budget committee? I'd like to see there be more discussions on payment in lieu of taxes with the mayor's input, of course, and how we come to a real number that benefits the taxpayers of Anderson County, because 11,000 acres, we're not getting a whole lot of money. So that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate your attention to it. And the only thing I had for Jay was, Jay, it says in that resolution that we relieve the contractors as well.
They just listed 4 this year, which is kind of strange. We've got a tax bill, major one, that's claiming that they're only utilizing the DOE reservation. They're not listed on there. So that's strange. That's not near the number of contractors that we have in the property assessor's office. But that's the only 4 they're claiming.
I think there's something going on with the property assessor and one of those now, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We've got a case on one.
Yeah, I got a case from one of them.
Contracted litigation on one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
And that one's not on the list.
Chairman Anderson.
Thank you, Dick. I think Commissioner Yeager was at this meeting, and maybe the mayor back in the fall. There was some discussion about counties with federal lands that were going to get an extra COVID payment or ARPA payment. It seemed like it was mostly to do with military bases or something, but it was extended like federal land or BLM lands. And then does this did this qualify or not qualify? Or
I don't remember the specifics. I remember asking, and it did not apply to us. And there are different payments in lieu of, so I think there are some that are under the Department of Interior. This particular payment is authorized, as Commissioner Wandell said, on page 3. You'll note section 8, it says payments of funds by DOE in lieu of property taxes are not entitlements, and nothing in the agreement modifies the discretionary authority given to the Secretary of Energy by section 168 of the Atomic Energy Act of 1954 as amended. Said funds are subject to legislative or administrative reductions in funding levels. And there have been, in my time here in government, there have been times where actually the federal government or Congress is holding something up and the funds are not allocated for our particular payment. And I know, so for instance, one year, if you recall, some of you were here, I think we were $32,000 and some change short. And we expressed a desire to have that made up and be, you know, even though if you look at the letter that I have to write, it's actually just a request for payment. And it is not an invoice, and they're very specific about the terminology and the language that I can use. And not to, you know, be argumentative in any way with what Commissioner Wandell is saying. I have met with the prior Roane County executive, the mayor of the city of Oak Ridge. We've been over this with DOE. There are things that we could do, and it would, I mean, we would have to amp up, and I have heard people mention lawsuits or getting into that debate, and those are things that we can talk about over the coming year if this commission wants to. You know, my own personal belief and strategy is, and that $892,000 is taxable. So that was a mechanism created back when the New Hope Center was built, and it was an arrangement put together by folks at that time who were able to put that building on the books so that Anderson County could be the recipient of those taxes. And then the government figured out what was going on, and they changed that so that people could not do that again. So that was kind of a win for us. I'm open to discussing it if it's any time you ever want to. You know, I've heard a lot of conversation about it. Each different area has made their own deals at the time. The Jolly Building, for instance, was a purchase made by your predecessors with some of that money. I have been in discussions with folks who have taken their money and put it into an account and continue to spend. They have spent over the years off money that was earned from that big lump payment. So, you know, whatever you all want to do, I'm your mayor and I'll work with you. I'll also always share my opinion when asked. I look at the tax abatements and incentives and things that we do for industries such as automotive, and I look at the DOE enterprise and Y-12 being located in our community, and the thousands and thousands of jobs we just had. This is unrelated, but we were with Office of Environmental Management on Friday with many of you commissioners, and we learned about the economic impact, the thousands of jobs, and then the expanded footprint of jobs that are created in our community by DOE presence. I would love to recruit another federal presence to our community and continue to build upon that, because that federal presence then has additional businesses that locate alongside it. And I think not being combative with them is, you know, the proper strategy, but that's my opinion about it.
Mr. Yeager.
Does Roane County have the same schedule as Anderson?
Yes, and so they have more acreage. So I cannot remember, Commissioner Yeager. I can get that for you pretty quickly. So during reappraisal year, usually what will happen is Oak Ridge, the city of Oak Ridge, myself, Roane County executive, as well as our property assessors will all get together and we'll all put the numbers on a board and discuss. The property assessor does this based on, values, and he has to be able to provide a booklet to DOE to justify, when they send it to Washington, to justify that per acre amount.
Okay, thanks.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I know there's one thing that we could probably do is maybe send this to, the Finance Committee. There's 4 members here in the room now of the Finance Committee. Then we could actually even discuss the trickle-down economics that comes from it and who it employs. And I think they said there was some staggering numbers. As a matter of fact, they were willing to come to the Rocky Top Chamber and do a mentor program. So I'm actually going to ask them to come to Operations Committee and do something like that as well, where it talks about all the jobs and where they're actually trying to go after more local employees. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
The next is just for your review. I had mentioned bringing back to you a draft of a county logo and seal guidance document. And I thought I would put that out there for your review, comments. I've already received, I know Commissioner Allen was under the weather tonight, but he did shoot me a message that he liked it, but he would like the brand identity second paragraph to add something about nuclear, since kind of the nuclear story is part of our history, and then also there's a renaissance ongoing. That was his comment, and I'm happy to distribute to all of the commissioners whatever comments come in, but I thought I'd put that out there for 30 days and let everyone comment.
Okay. Any comments on this one?
Just a question, and that's for the brand identity page, is that what you were saying?
Yes, his comment was specifically about that brand identity.
Okay.
Yeah, which we have that, I think. We have energy on the seal, but I think he just was wanting it in the text of the identity document. And then the next item, and something I do, just as a little follow-up on the DOE, to Commissioner Wandell's point, he is exactly right. If you don't ask, you can't receive. All they can do is say no. So we can say, we would like more, or we would like to partner in other ways if that's not possible. So next, Jeff Trabalka is here. So solid waste, I had a couple of commissioners ask some questions after the post-Christmas holiday madness at our convenience centers. And so I had a couple commissioners actually ask about, well, how do you measure this and how do you track that? And I told Jeff, I said, let's go to Operations Committee and just help folks maybe understand. There are new commissioners who probably, convenience center, what's going on, how is it managed? So Jeff put together in your packet some information that is a solid waste department overview. And I've asked him to come and just talk to you a little bit about everything that he manages in the solid waste department. And so you're crippled too. We need some different pews here. So this is Jeff Trabalka, our solid waste director.
Good evening, everybody. Just a brief rundown of sort of everything that we do with the solid waste department. Emails, phone calls, purchase orders, requisitions for everything that we use in the department. Grant applications, although with solid waste in the last couple of years, TDEC has tabled grants. They will be opening up new grants coming up in this next year. We do the budget. I operate the litter grant, run the litter crew, and run their daily schedule. The waste tire program for the county. We collect about 900 tons a year, about 50, 60,000 tires at our blockhouse facility. We pick up dead animals on the side of the road, take them out to the landfill, contract with vendors to do maintenance on fence, et cetera, concrete work, gravel at the convenience centers, our green box sites. Out at the blockhouse facility, we unload, load, process electronics, scrap metal, holy cow, lead acid batteries, used oil products, oil-based paint, fluorescent bulbs, and other problem wastes that can't really go into the regular waste stream at our convenience centers. I work on an annual progress report to the state. There is a mandated 25% reduction and diversion from the landfill every year. So I have to record and track everything that we recycle. I get numbers from all of the municipalities in the county, and then any business industry that will provide me numbers. Sometimes I have good luck with that, and then other years I don't. Last year was particularly bad. We had been at about a 50% reduction, but our biggest recycler in the county is Eagle Bend Distributing, and for some reason last year they had been providing me information for years, and they just clammed up last year. They wouldn't respond to emails, calls, or anything, and so we got through last year, but it's going to be interesting this year. We'll be close. I hope we'll get through it without any issues. What else? Do contract bids for all of the contracts we have in the county for different vendors. The landfill contract, our waste hauling and convenience center operations contract. We have a waste tire contract with a hauler to dispose of waste tires. Our e-waste processor, recycling processor, a waste oil collection at our convenience centers as well. We have 2 green box attendants up at Cages Creek and Brown Flats, which are up Highway 116. Those are unattended sites where we just have dumpsters. We have 1 leased convenience center at Frost Bottom. We handle that. And then we do an annual household hazardous waste event every year, sponsored by TDEC. I usually have that over in Oak Ridge. We usually collect about 10 tons of hazardous material every year. Usually participate in the Clinch River cleanup with Trout Unlimited and TVA, and we go out to basically Norris Dam at Peach Orchard, and they will collect garbage out of the river and we'll get rid of it. We clean up Highway 116, usually every year with the Coal Creek Watershed Group, just before Easter, so we try and hit it then. Just trying to keep Highway 116 a little cleaner. But we also do contract with CNC Litter to hit those roads, state roads as well. Generally, every year I will send recycling bins to events at the Museum of Appalachia. They have the Pioneer Days, a turkey shoot, and several other events. And we'll put recycling bins out for that and collect the recyclable material. And that's, for the most part, I mean, there are, of course, little things that pop up here and there.
Questions?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Now, then I understand that Blount County has a big glass recycling machine they bought.
A grinder to put it in
grinder for
asphalt.
glass
Yeah.
and everything like that. Is there some chance that we could start sending them our glass, get it recycled?
We don't separate the glass out at the moment.
Yeah, well,
There's the potential for that.
yeah, that's
if
what I
there
was
was
thinking.
any-
You'd need a separate bin for it.
If there was
but,
revenue involved, if they would pay us for that glass, then we definitely would consider it. We don't have bins for glass at the moment, so that would incur an additional rental cost for bins at our convenience centers. Additional hauling costs, and I'm not sure what the mileage to Blount County is,
Yeah,
but it would be considerable hauling cost as well.
okey dokey.
Anything else?
I can remember being in the solid waste businesses that for glass, there's not been any revenue for years.
Not for a long time.
Yeah.
There is one company just outside of Nashville that will pay about $30 a ton for separated amber, clear, and green glass. But to send it to Nashville would cost us $30,000 to $40,000. And so I think that when we actually had bins at the centers for glass, the biggest year, the total we had was about 50 tons. So at $30 a ton, you're looking at a $1,500 revenue that's going to cost us $30,000 to ship it.
And that's once it's sorted, because
Right.
most of the MRFs, they
Right.
just, and people, they just put all colors of glass into the recycling
Right.
bin, which then you gotta handle it again. It's, yeah. We've got, while you're up there.
Yes, sir.
Number 11 is East Wolf Valley Convenience Center from
Yep.
January Operations Committee meeting. Is it okay with the committee if he goes ahead and takes this up? Okay. All right, and I think maybe Commissioner Wandell had some questions about that at one time, and what it was is I guess it was right after Christmas is when
Right.
it was the scheduling. People were in line. I mean, I got phone calls about it.
Right.
Would you care to go over that a little bit?
Well, December 26th, the Monday after Christmas, we were open and we did not have any issues. That night, the snow hit us. And in the morning at about 7 o'clock, I got a call from Waste Connections saying that they were not going to run any trucks on Tuesday. They were supposed to close all of the convenience centers. They closed 3, and 3 of the attendants apparently did not get the message and opened for part of the day anyway. But there were no trucks running, so we couldn't get any material to the landfill at that point. The next day, specifically at Wolf Valley on Wednesday, the 28th, we started the day there with 2.5 empty compactors, which each compactor will hold, depending on what goes into it, 7 to 12 tons. By 12:30 on Wednesday, all of those compactors were full. We pulled one, filled that one up again by 2:30, and then by 5:15, that one was filled. So we filled 4 compactors in one day. It was about 34 tons. That is a highly unusual total. I've not seen that. The months leading up to that, we were looking at 1.2 ton or 1.2 pulls per day at about 12 to 15 tons a day. So I'm not sure why it all hit the day that it did, why people chose. I do know that in the last month, we have been seeing Knox County people that we have been having to turn away. We also have an issue on Mondays and Tuesdays now, and I don't think it's that big an issue, but it may have been after Christmas. The city of Oak Ridge has shut down its center at the east end of the turnpike in Oak Ridge on Mondays and Tuesdays, just because the cost of keeping it open all week was too much. I do get calls from Anderson County, Oak Ridge residents about going to the Marlow Convenience Center and the Wolf Valley Convenience Center. So I think we may be seeing a little bit more use on Mondays and Tuesdays than we normally do, but I can't be sure. I mean, that was just a highly unusual event that particular day, the Wednesday.
We do Christmas really big in District 1.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just that one. The Marlow Convenience Center filled 3 dumpsters that day as well.
Knoxville or Knox County they've started closing on Wednesdays. all
From
day.
some kind of maintenance, yeah.
Right, so is there any kind of uptick for
That's-
maybe people from
I
Halls
don't
coming
know,
to
and that
105?
may be possible. I know I've had to turn several people away at Blockhouse when I asked them where they were coming from, and they said Knoxville. And I said, well, you can't take this here. And they wound up trying to go to the Wolf Valley Convenience Center, and I had called the attendant and said, look out for this truck, because I had just a gut feeling they were going somewhere with it. We've tried this in the past of checking tags and licenses for county residents. It does tend to slow the lines down, and we have had complaints about stopping people and saying, where are you coming from? If we want to deal with that, we can look into that again and have the attendant start checking every 3rd person maybe. But be aware that you may get calls of, well, they stopped me to ask for my license and all of that stuff.
Okay, what's the procedure when they come to pick a container up? Do they bring an empty with them? Or they come pick the
Generally,
full
they
one
will
up?
come, pull the full one, and then bring the empty back. Occasionally, they will bring an empty, but there are, I think, 4 containers that are floating empty containers that don't have enough containers to do that every time.
I know, like, I deal with Noble Metals a lot, and
Right.
some of the other scrap dealers, and because of the cost of transportation, they bring an empty one.
Right?
They pull the full one out,
Right.
set it down, put the empty in, and then take the full one back. Now, do we still pay per haul?
Per haul, yes.
Okay. So, in other words, we're paying, they could bring one.
I'll look into that and
Yeah.
see whether, I don't know what kind of costs have gone up, and so I don't know that they'll be able to guarantee that they can do that every time, but I will check into it.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Wandale. Oh, and Commissioner Vandergrift next.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say Jeff does a great job on a very limited staff help-wise. Do you have any staff?
As of last Monday, I do not.
So, you know, I don't, sometimes when I talk, it might look like I'm going after somebody, but I'm not. But sometimes I think we have to bring it up to figure out how to get a solution. So, first question is the Waste Connections contract up for renewal, or have we already bid it out, or do we know?
Two more years? I think we got 2 more years.
Okay.
I
So,
think it's 2.
you know, I'm going to try to attend the Solid Waste Committee meeting tomorrow and look at that contract. I have that contract, also have the waste management contract with the landfill, and I carry all that stuff around like an idiot, but I look at it from time to time and try to understand what's going on. But, you know, what you won't see in your information there is you see some tonnages, right, for cardboard, aluminum, 1 to 2 tons of aluminum. Folks, I'm sorry, there's more than 1 to 2 tons of aluminum in Anderson County going someplace. You know, and what you have here is, I was on solid waste many years ago, and we went from separating recyclables to a single stream recycling process at the request of a big company in Knoxville. And what that did is put all the little companies that were making headway in developing the business and developing the recycling effort, put them out of business. A lot of people will say, well, single site recycling is the way to go, but what you'll see again in your paperwork that Jeff has provided, you might see tonnages, but you don't see no revenue. You're not going to see any revenue. And the answer will be, well, there's no money to be made. I've been on commission now going on 17 years, and that's the same thing I hear every year. There's no money in recyclables. I disagree. I think there is money in recyclables. So, how do we get to a point where we establish a business model? Because what's embarrassing for me, and I know Commissioner Mays as well, is when constituents in my district say, you know, I recycle, but it's always full. What happens to the recyclables? There's no answer. And Jeff may disagree with me, but I think there's sometimes those recyclables go to landfill. And we pay to take it to the landfill. Because the big company in Knoxville says they can't take it in because they don't have the space or the market's down or whatever. So all these little folks that go wash out their dog and cat food cans and people go the extra mile to recycle, we're not really recycling. So what are we going to do about it? What are we as a commission going to do about it? And I think what it comes down to is we got to get more involved in the contract. We got to understand how we can help Jeff out and the mayor to make sure it gets done. I personally would like to see the contract hauling put out for bids. There's a company in our district that's located that has roll-offs, and I think they could haul the containers. Now, I don't know what all the issues are in the middle, but I think they could do it. They said they could. I asked them, but they ain't never had a chance to bid on it either. So it's a lot to take in. I don't know how we fix it. Again, not Jeff's fault, and something I'll say for Jeff, he might not have said, is everybody at these convenience centers are not Anderson County employees. They are employees of the Waste Connections. They adhere to them. Now, Jeff has some leeway to, direct them, but he doesn't have the ability to fire and hire, and he doesn't have that ability. So I just want to be clear on that. But getting back to the sheriff and the Judge Spitzer that was in here, I'd love to see the recovery program, I think it was called. Why don't we have those folks come out to our landfills or our convenience centers and help? They can check in tags coming in and let the Waste Connection guy do his job, and gal, So lots of things to think about. We can't fix it all night. I don't want to take up your time, but I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you, Jeff, and the mayor giving us an update and overview. Thank you.
Well, back in 2013, 2014, you'll probably remember that we talked about doing this recycling program through the county, because there's many counties across the South especially that does this, and there's one over in North Carolina that I deal with pretty extensively, yeah.
You're talking about baling.
Yeah,
Doing it
baling.
on
And what they'll do is they'll bale their aluminum and they'll set it back until it comes back up, because it's traded daily.
And I do that on a very small scale. That's where the 1 to 2 tons.
The ones that you
but
do at
that's-
Blockhouse Valley.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the bulk of our aluminum does go into the single stream.
Yeah.
And so there is no revenue with that.
And I want to echo what Jeff does, because if you've ever been with him, especially like on the Coal Creek thing, he's 3 people. He'll drive the truck, get out, pick it up, haul it, then takes it back, and he'll separate it and put it up. I mean, there's no moss gathers under this guy's feet, I'll tell you that. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to bring up a few issues that we had at the Glen Alpine Convenience Center. Of course, the 27th of December, that Tuesday, actually on Monday, the convenience center closed early because it was full. Then on the 27th, I believe it closed, I've got the time written down, but I think it was around 2 p.m. But we also have an issue of only having one container. That happens quite a bit. We only have one container that is open.
Located, actually
Yes,
physically there?
yes. And so on Saturday afternoons and Monday mornings, they'll need to close a little early on Saturday afternoons or open a little late on Monday mornings. The other issue is that when they do, of course, they can't take the refuge, so they close. So it's to the point where they actually have a temporary orange sign behind the hour sign located on the gate that says they're temporarily closed. So it happens so often, they've made a sign that says they're temporarily closed.
So just so that I'm perfectly clear, there's actually only one box on site.
There,
And that happens frequently.
I would say it happens pretty often. I think,
I think that was one of the big issues the day after Christmas was people, why we
Has
only
it
got
been
one.
more than that?
They just
What's that?
started the past 2 weeks having a single stream and 2 regular trash compactors working. But up until that point, it's just been
one.
Okay.
It looks like Waste Connections has made some adjustments there. Hopefully, we'll keep that other one up there on Saturdays especially. It really helps. Because the line's back out to the road again.
Yes, yes.
If they keep 2 up there, I think we'll keep the traffic moving.
And I think that's why they made the sign, the temporary closed sign.
Okay. All right, I was not made aware that there was only one box on site at any time, because there's 3 garbage compactors at
Yes,
that location.
yes.
Okay, I will look into that.
Thank
Can you imagine
We
if we still
appreciate
had
it.
the Glen Alpine?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it would be, yeah. Commissioner
We've got a
Moses.
nice facility there.
Yeah, you
So,
do.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing I would ask, and as you can imagine, Facebook during that 3-day period was off the chain. But nevertheless, there were some really good points made by some folks on there, and I think most of it has been discussed tonight. But one thing I would ask maybe, if it's feasible, is that in the event that a facility needs to close early or open late, that maybe you shoot a message or someone shoot a message to either the commissioners or someone that we can put a little Facebook blast out there
Okay.
or something. That way we can, because I think sometimes and it's happened to me, and I hate going to the dump sometimes, but my wife will even tell you it's painful. She hates even having to ask me. But going down there, and if they've had to close early, I just think for some of the people in our district that if we could,
Word out.
yeah. So, and I don't recommend creating a Facebook page for solid waste. I don't recommend that at all. But at the very least, Commissioner Wandell or myself could send out something to
Okay.
the citizens.
Unfortunately, sometimes I am the last person to know.
Well,
until
and
a day later that.
No, and I understand that. So I would just maybe, if that's something you could maybe get with Waste Connections on, just say, hey, keep this top of mind now, is if this has to happen, your people need to tell my people, Thank you, Joe.
I'll definitely do that. Yep.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
One thing I do want to note, there is an issue that Jeff and I are going to try to work with Waste Management on. Our hauler and our contract is with Waste Connections for the site, but on Saturdays, the landfill actually closes 3 hours or so more prior to our closure at the convenience center. So if you encounter right at the 6 hours, okay. So if we get full, there's nowhere to haul the trash. And then the other thing, and I'm not throwing off on my municipalities because I love them, but I live in the city of Clinton, and there was no extra trash pickup, no pile your Christmas trash beside your trash can. We still had one trash can. And so our beloved Jeff gets raked across the coals on Facebook, and it absolutely breaks my heart. But we're picking up trash for cities because people naturally want to get cleaned up after Christmas, and we don't mind. We're a county facility. Come on down, bring it. But
Except
there
after
was
the holidays.
Yes, that was at, well, and Lee, we had all the grandkids at the house, so we had extra trash. He goes, puts it out in the truck, and I said, you better, whatever you do, you're not taking that. So we waited 10 days after Christmas to take ours to the to the convenience center. Yes, that's because I love you, Jeff. But I love, Mike Rowe and his job, or his show about the jobs that this is what this man
Exactly.
and the folks who work for us, and we will be coming to you because Jeff has been trying to hire, at the existing wages, and we cannot get anybody. He's had one vacancy. We've upped the wages. I told him today, I said, up them again. I mean, right now, he's Jeff and Jeff, and that's it. And, he's also managing the litter crew. We have Officer Leach with the Sheriff's Department. He's a great partner down there for us. But, something we have to also keep in mind, they are inmates, and we do have to have Officer Leach there and there's a liability there. And so it's not all just free labor. I mean, it's labor with strings and a lot of liability, and making sure it's a constant monitoring of, with drugs and those kind of things. So we have to make sure. But I will make a plug, and I did come to you a few months ago about the possibility of relocating the recycling center to an area where we can do a facility like Roane County. And over the years, in my 10 years in government, we've come a couple of times, and we got maybe partial approval and then ultimately shut down. But it is an investment this county should make in order to generate more of these revenues like Commissioner Wandell was talking about. We have to have a facility to be able to make that happen. The recycling world is limited. So I'm at these TDEC meetings. Basically in the Southeast, you have one tire company right now. And the state is looking at, okay, what can we do? There's a couple, I think there's a new one in Middle Tennessee. I asked about them. The jury's still out. I think they're still developing a process. Yes.
Rubber manufacturer.
Yes. And, I don't know what it is about the industry, but there's not a lot of choice and diversity. I serve on the Tennessee Advisory Commission for Intergovernmental Relations. Litter was a big topic of study this year. We just came out with a report. I don't know that it was as strong as the TASER board really wanted, but one of the things, for instance, there are members that sit there that are from all across the state, and to hear their litter stories from their county, the roadside litter, it is a core issue in the state of Tennessee, and we have to figure out a way to beef up enforcement. And Senator Yeager, who chairs TASER, has noted that we have an issue with the judges and law enforcement. The way the law is written in the state of Tennessee makes it very difficult to prosecute. So you don't have... We've not given our prosecutors and our judges the tools to accurately or to appropriately or robustly enough prosecute roadside littering. But it happens around the world, and we have other countries in the world that can do it, and surely we can figure out a way here in the United States and in Tennessee. But I do want everyone to know that this man works his butt off.
It sure does.
So. He'll have a solid waste meeting tomorrow. Everyone is welcome to come.
Room 118. But now that you've said that, this actually, many, many years back, I approached commission to send a letter to Nashville promoting a bottle bill being passed in the state of Tennessee. It touches on everything the mayor just said. If there is a bottle bill in place, number one, the recycling rates jump up 60 to 70%, because then that is a valuable item that people will make sure they're going to recycle. Number two, for me and for litter, there's about 50 to 60% less roadside litter, because those items are prime litter items when there's no value on them. That was all. So maybe we persuade.
We had a resolution on the bottle bill and passed.
It was several years back, yeah.
It didn't pass down the General Assembly.
I know.
So that, Anytime. You want to fire back up, we can change it.
Thank you.
You know, one of the federal committees that I deal with is there is some grant money now for that, substantial amounts for recycling. And maybe I'll try to get some of that and send that forward to you.
There's also, I mean, maybe we can, I know you all like taking field trips. There's a couple of places we can go visit. Sevier County has, and this might be something, an opportunity. Sevier County really does an incredible job handling their waste, but I was at a regional mayor's meeting and asked, why is that? You know, how are they able to, they have all these digesters and all of this stuff. Well, you have the #1 visited national park in the United States located in Sevier County, and apparently the federal government provides the funding to purchase this equipment. And so, Commissioner Wandell, to your point, maybe this is our opportunity to partner with the lab and Y12 and DOE and say, hey, help us come up with a way to better manage our waste here in Anderson County, and that this might be a great opportunity.
I agree.
I'm going to go backwards to your
Payment in lieu of taxes
Yes, sir.
conversation. Charlie Hensley's back on the Oak Ridge City Council. He's the biggest bulldog in Oak Ridge about the same issue. And there's a new city manager coming on board, so I don't think he's been announced yet. Maybe he has, I don't think so. But Charlie may take up the reins again and be a partner for you in this. But I've been in a lot of meetings with Charlie, and he talks about that in nearly every meeting. So you might have a partner in Charlie back to help with that item.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Does anybody need a break? We probably got another hour or so. I see big eyes. Let's you want to take a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Okay. Everybody's back? Okay, we'll resume. Storm damage and power failure discussion, requested by Commissioner Barron. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, everybody's familiar with like just-in-time ordering for business and stuff like that. And it appears that's the way how TVA is being run now, because we all know on December 23rd we had blackouts and stuff like that. Cumberland Fossil Fuel Plant, Bull Run, John Sevier Gas Plant, they couldn't get these plants running at all. There's a mistake in my letter that I put in here. It's 4,000 megawatts that we're missing instead of 40,000. Now then, and there were some small gas plants they couldn't get operating either. So, you know, I've written to TVA. They haven't responded to me. But I think we need to look at our county buildings maybe and see what we can do to prevent having storm damage like we did in the last one. Oak Ridge Schools had $324,000 worth of damage. We had damage to Jolly Building. I think there was another elementary school that had some damage. If we can do some stuff to prevent damage to these schools and buildings, it might be worth investing a little bit. You know, I don't know what TVA is going to do. I mean, they've apparently had a colossal catastrophe of trying to get plants running and couldn't get them running. You know, I doubt that'll ever happen again, but it could. And if we run into any kind of longer term than a half an hour. I mean, that was just problems from just a half an hour with no power. You know, if it ran into multiple hours or a day or something like that, like over in North Carolina, they shot out a couple of substations, and the county was without power for 3 or 4 days. And you could imagine if something like that happened at Christmas or, you know, in the middle of summer in 110-degree heat or something like that, we'd be in a real bind. You know, we'd have people dying. So I don't know whether you want to take a look at this, maybe do a survey of our buildings and ask the people that are operating them if they foresee any problems or potential problems, or what we can do to prevent any problems. Should we add extra insulation, you know, to reduce energy use? I mean, there's a lot we can do. I mean, obviously we don't have an unlimited budget. We're not going to go around and spend $1 million on every school, but, you know, it hit me today that, you know, what about the fire departments? You know, you can't close a firehouse because it's cold, you know, but you can't expect firemen to stay there without heat either, you know, for any length of time. So, I mean, maybe we could do a small generator or something like that on some of these buildings, you know. But each building's going to be different. We've got new buildings, we got old buildings. Probably mostly old buildings, but anyway, just wanted to bring that up and see if y'all wanted to discuss it. Maybe put together a survey and find out what we can on it and see what we can do, or just whatever.
I know the courthouse itself has a generator on the roof, but we don't know about some of the other ones. And, you know, it was kind of a unique situation about when everything happened, the cold spell with the schools, nobody being there, but I agree with you. We can definitely do something and maybe look at that. And I know that Congressman Burchett is going to bring TVA to the carpet. So if you want to follow him, maybe write a letter to him what he's planning on doing. But he's wanting some answers of why that happened and lack of planning. So maybe we can follow him on that too. Maybe send a letter to where we could be involved in that or something.
Yeah, Commissioner Grant, I like your idea, but I just want to bring you up to date. We've completed energy efficiency projects on just about every one of our schools. And that was replacing all the windows, the old-timey boilers with new modernized HVAC. Did one just on the Jolly building here within the past 3 years. We've got a big generator here and over at the Jolly building. That was just a freak situation at the Jolly building. We had a long-time plumbing problem up on the 4th floor, and the pipe overflowed. It didn't freeze at that point, and it ran down the wall through my office down into the parking garage where it iced over, and it looked like a lot worse than it was. But Roger was quick to get the folks out. Roger Lloyd cleaned it all up. But we're well on our way. We're doing a lot of work, and I think we've about got all schools now, don't we? I know we've got the major high schools in Dutch Valley and Bryceville, and I think pretty much all of them are done. But Jolly building, definitely. The courthouse has got new energy efficiency stuff in it. So I like the way you're thinking, but I think we're doing a lot better than we were about 15 years ago. The Jolly building, you're welcome to come to my office anytime. We'll show you the difference in the windows. They're much better. They're tinted. We've got much better shades. We've got all new ceiling tiles, insulation above them. So I think we should see some payoffs on that building pretty soon. And the way these energy efficiency projects work is the savings from our utility bill goes to paying off the project itself, and it seems to be working quite well. Oh, yeah.
But it's paid off early too.
I mean, insulation pays for itself real quick.
Absolutely. The windows do too.
You know, well,
But,
that's,
anytime
that's
you wanna-
also insulation.
Yeah,
you
anytime
know,
you want
through
to talk
the
about
window.
this specifically, and I'll be glad to help you with it, and we can drop a resolution if you can think of something. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okey-dokey.
Chairman Anderson. Jay?
We're getting an update from ESG. So are they coming to February or March, or, I was thinking they were.
They were on, is that the one that was on the calendar
They
before?
can't, yeah, they postponed, but
They, it's probably going to be March, so they were going to come February, but Mr. Nelson broke his leg.
Oh, okay.
And so that got moved to March. And to Commissioner Barron's point, I can also have emergency management look at this issue as well. So for instance, I know EMS does not, they've put generators on their capital request list for several years now. And Bryce at EMA has just sent over that there are some generator grants that are available. So I know he's working with EMS on those. And then it's been a while since I've looked at this, so I apologize. But there is a couple of areas where we do have need, and then I know that we've reached out to CUB where we could use they've got some real heavy-duty generators that through a MOU we can use from them. But I think we do have a little bit more work to do on it, but I'll follow up with EMA and see if they can't get you an assessment list.
Okey-dokey.
I want to commend Commissioner Barron for all of his information that he submitted, and the documents and the stuff, the perfect storm left state in the dark and all this other that we got, and for all your background help. We really appreciate that. Anything else on this? Next is the discussion of a workshop of planning commission. I sit on planning commission, and what we're doing is we're actually redoing the zoning regs, planning and zoning regs, and we're going to streamline them and combine some of the districts together. So what they've asked to do is, instead of just waiting until everything's done at once, is that they'd like to bring it to operations and go over it, one piece at a time, maybe in 3 different pieces, because that's actually what we're doing in planning commission. So maybe next month we'll start setting that up, because we're real close to finalizing this, but coming instead of just trying to get it all done at once and get county commission's input, because there's a lot of things that were taken up, especially with campgrounds and trailer parks and some of these other districts doing away with some of them and combining them and what's involved in them. So we'll know going forward. So if that's all right with this committee, we'll try to set up maybe for next month. Is that okay? Okay. All right, we've already done the East Wolf Valley Convenience Center. Next is the Operations Subcommittee questions for discussion. Stephanie, you want to come up?
Yes. I think you asked for the brochures. Over there. Got your corner piled up.
Over in the lower 40 here.
I think the questions, we, in the subcommittee meeting, we decided to take up, a set of questions at a time. So I think the first set of questions was, does it need to be located at the interstate? The location, that was one of the items. Have you got a list of all the questions?
I do.
Well, I'm just going to let you take it.
Sure. Well, I was just here to answer any of the questions you all had. I think we discussed last time that it doesn't particularly have to be at the interstate. But the problem leads to the next one. If not, then where would a suitable location be? We brought a proposal to County Commission last January of a suitable location. And so, and then through the process of a year, you know, that was voted down. So at this point, I don't really know what a suitable location would be. I don't have an answer to that question, because we proposed what we felt like a suitable location would be. So I know that I did reach out to Scott Burton, who's city mayor, but also a realtor. I reached out to Chris Mitchell in Norris, who city mayor, but he's also does a lot with real estate in the city of Norris. And I reached out to a realtor here in town, and there's really not anything for sale. There's property, but that would put us back into building something. So I don't.
One of some of these things stem from some of the conversations that we had before about, we have the tourism center at the interstate, but we have very little walk-in traffic, if any, because most everything's digital. I think that's one of the things we talked about, you know, being on the tourism board. So I think that's why, and, you know, with the new commissioners, you know, that's a question. Well, then why do we even have one? You know, if we don't have the walk-in business. Would that be better off to be sold in retail? And that's what we actually voted on, you know, to sell that and move on to retail. And that goes into the better uses for the property. Other county departments, you know, change it to commercial property. And that's kind of what we had decided, that would be best to sell and turn it back into commercial property. But then when we voted not to go into the partnership with the chamber at that location, well, then it was decided that it'd be best just to stay where it's at. And I think you bet I wasn't able to be at that meeting either, about redoing the building there. And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We met Friday on the 3rd and just walked all around the building and looked at the current facility, some of the maintenance efforts that need to be done. We do have a mold inspection. We are meeting tomorrow with a vendor that would be able to clean the mold. We've also, most of the mold stems from the roof. And so we also have met with a roofer to get his feedback. Was not able to get in touch with him today, so I'll have that information. But we had a couple of people on our board who are very familiar with cabins and metal roofs, just from their professions, and it seems like most of the issues are just where the roof meets the building, basically. So those may be able to be patched. I don't know. We just need to look. It's a 20-plus-year-old roof, so we need a professional opinion, and we're working on getting that.
I know a metal roof usually lasts a whole lot longer than one.
Yes, right.
I've got one that's 55 years old so far.
So, but we need to, if not replace it, then definitely repair where some of the water is getting in. We have 3 other areas. We have 2 areas on the roof that have leaking mold problems, and then we have 3 other areas. One of them was where we enclosed the back porch. There's been just where the roof connects there. There's been some leaking right there. And then our men's bathroom has leaked. So underneath the house, there's some mold issues there just from a previous leak. And then the way that the heating air system sits at an incline towards the building, water is leaking in there. So they did suggest a barrier. But again, we have SurfPro coming tomorrow to give us some estimates on what that would cost to fix. And then some other items that we want to repair is the driveway needs to be resurfaced. It's probably the most expensive item other than the roof. And then looking at the sign, our signage needs to be updated. So it's
the
faded.
digital sign?
No, the digital sign is fine.
Okay, I started to say that.
The part that says Anderson County Tourism is
Right.
faded. And so that will just need to be replaced, repainted, replaced. But those are kind of the major ones. I think I'm missing anything else, but there's a couple other little things that we'd like to do, but we've talked about how can we reuse that space, how can we change it a little bit to accommodate some of our current needs. So maybe we have if you've been in there, we have a lot of bathroom space. We have 6 stalls, so we may be able to take it down to 2 stalls and unisex bathrooms and reconfigure that space too. So.
And then maybe add on to the back or something like that?
Yes, there is. I know when the buyer was interested in the property, he talked to adjacent property owners about maybe a different ingress, egress issues. And so there may be some opportunities there, and that would give us room to expand, to build on if we wanted to.
Okay, and then that facility, that meeting facility would be available to anybody, really?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, and of course, you don't have a cost on any of this yet,
No.
okay?
No, I mean, we would have to work with the architect to see what, because building onto a log home is different than building onto a, stick and frame. So we just have to talk to an architect about any potential there.
Okay, so you're going to break it down into repair and
Yes.
then addition?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's see. And then that's where it's getting into, before we did any of that, look at the options, need to be evaluated, whether to go ahead and sell it and then, provide something else. Then what kind of revenue could this property generate for Anderson County versus the current tax exempt status? That was one of the questions there, but I don't know how you could answer that one.
The only thing that I could estimate is I looked at the property next door, which is double the size of our property, and they are generating about $16,000 a year in property taxes. I have no idea what they're generating in sales tax.
Okay. Yeah,
But that property-
the sales tax would be the,
Yes.
yeah, would be
Yes.
the big thing there. Of course, we just talked about the need for meeting spaces. And what are some that, do you know that, some of the other large meeting places that we have in Anderson
I
County?
do. I have a list of those. Outside of Oak Ridge, there are 8. There are a couple other meeting space areas that are, I would call them kind of private, like, for example, Alex Haley Farm. They don't open it up to just the general public to have an event there or rent that space. And same thing with JA. There are stipulations on who they can rent that space to. So I did not include those. And some of the, there's about 13, 14 rental spaces in Oak Ridge. And again, some of them are connected with the Department of Energy, so they have to be a specific purpose that meets their guidelines to be able to use that space. Same thing, American Museum of Science and Energy. Some of those places are not just open to general public events. They would have to be specific to their mission, so to
What are
say.
some of the places that's available?
The Clinton
inside
Community Center, the Country Jewel in Andersonville, Elizabeth Clare in downtown Clinton, the Holiday Inn Express, it sits about 100 people. The Kincaid House, the Museum of Appalachia is 225 inside.
You might want to slow it down a little bit.
I'm sorry.
We got somebody taking notes.
I'm sorry. I can provide you a list. Sure. The Museum of Appalachia is 225 inside. Norris Dam State Park, the tea room is 100, and they have a couple of other little rooms too that they rent out. And then Sequoia Marina is about 56 banquet style, 86 reception style. Back to the Country Jewel, they're about 100. Elizabeth Clare, 150. So I don't have anything on the community center, Clinton Community Center. It varies also. You're looking at a gymnasium size to. And I know some of the churches allow them to use their space, but again, that's not just a general tourism public, that's, very specific.
So most of those that you mentioned, other besides the Clinton Community Center is for profit company?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask?
Sure.
What about the schools? I'm sure they have auditoriums, and they must have meeting space at schools.
Yes. And that again would, if it fits into their purpose, and it would just depend on the group. And we'd have to work around their hours and activities they have going on. Like, for example, with the fishing tournament, we weren't able to use their facilities because they had activities happening during that time.
Okay, and the Emory Valley Center on Emory Valley Road has.
That's in Oak Ridge.
Good, yeah.
I can go through the Oak Ridge list, but, if we're looking outside of Oak Ridge and in the Clinton Norris area. And Clinton Norris Community Center, I know, does a lot of different events there. I'm not sure what their policies are as far as renting out to just general public activities.
Let me ask the mayor, what's the capacity of 118A?
It varies by configuration, so I want to say 48 or 44 when you have one table up front for speakers and then chairs. I've got all the full diagrams. I can get
No,
those sent to you.
Ballpark was good enough. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And any time through these questions, just chime right in.
How many events per year do we need large meeting spaces?
There's not really any way that I could give you that number off the top of my head, because the requests that we get, we don't really pursue it because we've not ever had it available. So, it's just really hard for me to answer that question. And I guess more what we're looking at is the potential. We are working on a group sales strategy, and we were talking about the different groups that we could try to attract and break that down. I mean, reunions are very popular, especially different reunions like military reunions, organizations, association meetings, those kind of things. Like, for example, I'm a member of the Tennessee Writers Association, and I know we've gone to different places, state parks, those kind of things, and had different meetings and stuff like that too. So it would really what we're looking at is the potential to recruit events to the area versus, again, we do get requests, but for me just to say, oh, there's 60, 50, 100 events a year, I wouldn't even want to guess at that.
The libraries, the public libraries have some meeting space.
Mm-hmm.
We've had wedding showers, birthday parties, that sort of thing. We've been a little hesitant to go into the private like we've had some requests for MLM type meetings or something like that. We haven't really wanted to get into like for-profit purposes.
Right.
But we do have that. Clinton, I think, probably has the largest space, but those are some other options too.
And I know you've hopefully spoken with Katie about the one that Oak Ridge is building. It's going to be like 300 or 400 people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know Oak Ridge is a different animal, but you can use that.
Oh, absolutely.
Area, right?
And there's some events that we've gotten requests for, and we have turned them over to Katie and let her talk to them about potential meeting space. And again, one of the reasons we brought up meeting space is because we were looking at building a new facility with the chamber. So
How many people were you planning to accommodate in that area?
I believe that the chamber's office area would be, I think they really don't want to guess. I'm thinking that they were talking about 200, 250. So, but then combined, the area that we could all accommodate combined, you would be pushing close to that 200, 300 number with interior and exterior space. So.
And did the chamber just recently have an event at First Baptist Church
Yes.
for 400?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know one of the things where people talk to me about is why would the county want to build a building to compete with the private sector where
Sure.
we've got, like 8 people now.
Right. Well, and yes, I mean, that's always a concern, and we do want to help our businesses, absolutely. But, just like I had a conversation with Ron Meredith the other day, and he was like, some people say we don't need more space. He's like, oh, we need it. I mean, there's a lot of different things that the community has, but what we're looking at is bringing a tourist. That's our responsibility, is bringing visitors to this area. So that's one of the reasons that if we look at what our future needs are and what requests I receive, that was why we wanted to incorporate meeting space into the new facility.
And I guess that was one of the questions I had, because the chamber is designed to promote businesses, especially for the people that's there. So why would you want to go in and create a competition? I guess that's one of the things that I see. And like I said before in one of our other meetings, our industrial is full, our retail space is full, just basically at the Clinton area. And we've all done it. They've done such a great job at one little bitty, small building. And the tourism has done, fantastic out of, you've done your job right there, in, the building we have. So that's another question I get from constituents. Why do we need to change and invest more money? But we'll go on with the next question. Have anybody else got any comments on the space? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I go back up
Sure.
to some of the previous?
Yeah.
One, if there is better uses of the property, I just wanted to report that Commissioner Allen and myself had the opportunity to meet with EMS, and it was suggested that maybe that might be a good place for a substation for the EMS. And after looking and all that sort of thing, I think they determined that that would just be a temporary location. And so I know that there was some talk about that. So I think it has been determined that that would not satisfy the needs, maybe just for a short interim period of time, but not for their future goals. They have a study apparently that that has suggested that some of the substations needed to be moved to better cover the entire county. And one of those stations was Andersonville, moving it closer to the interstate. So that's why that was brought up. And so we didn't particularly go for that reason. We went to just get an update, EMS, which he is planning on doing for the full commission, given this month. But anyways, I think the short of it is they decided that that would probably just be a temporary fix.
Okay.
The other question about a suitable location for tourism, some people had given some suggestions, like once the chamber builds their new facility, perhaps where they are currently located. I think the Museum of Appalachian was brought up. Someone suggested that the Darty Building, and I know you had mentioned in the last meeting that the Darty Building was something that was appealing. And so when they finish their renovations, that whole first floor that's there, is that Market or Main Street? There's going to be potential in there for office space as well. But some office space inside the courthouse here is available. There are 2 offices. I think it's just recently become available. And this doesn't happen often, but there's a couple of offices on the 2nd floor that could be used for tourism as well. There's two big offices there. So that's some suggestions for maybe where tourism could be relocated.
Okay.
Commissioner Palmer, what 2 offices are you talking about on the 2nd floor?
It's across from purchasing,
Oh,
where the mailroom, is that what that is now?
okay, thanks.
Go down and check it out. They're nice
If we got
size.
anybody in the public out here that wants to input or speak, just feel free, because this is just like an open meeting. Anything else on the previous questions?
Mayor Frank?
Yeah.
So, I wasn't in town for your first meeting. Can you help me understand, like, so we're having discussions, what's the ultimate, or is it going to be, like, coming together and discussing recommendations? I'm just trying to get, a handle on where you're headed with this. Because as I'm listening to the conversation, so there's a lot of anecdotal information being presented, but to me it sounds like, there are several different issues here. One is, we do need to note the building is still in a state of surplus, so that motion has not been rescinded. Then we're talking about mold, which I have experience with mold, and before we go looking at repairs, we need to know what kind of mold is in there. Is this just something that's cosmetic, or is it an issue and a health issue? And there are different kinds of mold that needs to be looked at. Then there really, I think what we're talking about here is a difference between wants and what is actually needed. And that would perhaps be some kind of study. It could be a limited study. What is the walk-in traffic? What is the data? Maybe it's something that you look at for 6 months. What are the needs? There are wants, and then there are what's the public doing? And I think Stephanie has relayed a lot of that to you all over the course of time. The same thing on meeting space. There's a lot of meeting space in the community. That was going to be the purpose of the new chamber building. But is that actually a need that the government needs to address? I mean, to your point. So I think there needs to be a little structure. That's just my 2 cents sitting here. Lots and lots of great discussion, but I didn't know where it's going to culminate. Is it going to be at the end? You're going to get together? Because I would love to help and, provide whatever help I can to this body or the full commission. If you have a little insight on that.
What we've done is we're going to have 3 meetings.
Okay.
And we're going to have questions presented to Stephanie before the meeting of and there'll be more questions come up, and I'm sure we'll just get them emailed to her. After this conversation, the first conversation was about how we proceed. And then we decided to break it up into 3 different meetings, and then we'll come up with a list of questions. And so like the questions, the answers from tonight will lead to next month's questions. And then after maybe the 3rd month, and then, we can say, what do we think's best for the county?
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the way I see it.
And the reason I say this, we're going through this with Ethra. So Ethra has a very large facility, and the lease is coming back up. And the folks that work there, or the administration, wants to purchase a building. And so there's a group of mayors, we were put together, and we are a steering committee. And so how we're tackling it is, of course, we want to support the people who are working there. But then ultimately, we're in charge of these federal and state dollars. And so how we're approaching it is, a cost analysis. What is the cost of, renegotiating the existing lease? What does it look like to build? What does it look like to rent another facility or renovate? And, you have to put all of that on a spreadsheet to decide what makes the best sense for the organization and the use of the tax money. So while we give, you get a little extra finger on the scale for what the wants are, if it doesn't make sense, we may be able to get them a better location and a better facility for a better price by leasing instead of buying. And so, there may be something better out there for tourism that's also a better cost for the county and the use of the dollars. And so this might take a little calculating and something that could provide you with a little third-party analysis on looking at all of those different scenarios.
Okay.
Anything I can do to help, I'm happy to help.
We appreciate that. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Because we're about at the end of that, really.
The property sale proceeds is still questionable in my mind. I've heard that it belongs to tourism if we sell it. The property is in Anderson County in general's name, and I'm gonna ask Jay if he has an opinion on this, because that's important to me.
I think it's important to all of us. I contacted CTAS Legal shortly after this arose with Tyler's original question, talking to Kaylee, and asked them to give us a legal opinion. And I talked with Christy for a long time about it and swapped emails, and she wanted to yield to the comptroller's office and Amy Sosville, our auditor, because Amy's the one that first brought it to our attention that needed to go back into the tourism fund. And with talking with Christy with CTAS Legal, she's the head of the department, it looks like we came down to, okay, does all the profits go back to the tourism fund, or does only what was spent out of the tourism fund, I think it was like $200,000, go back to the tourism fund, and the profits go to the county general, and then the other option was it all goes to the county general. And the last I left it with, I turned it over to Robbie,
and he met with Kaylee, I guess, again. And Christy said y'all had it worked out, and that was about as brief as I got from her. So, do you have it worked out truly? No. Okay. Well, anyway, I asked Christy, I said, if they've got it worked out, please tell me what they worked out. And that was when did you meet with her? Wednesday? Yeah, it was on a Wednesday. So that was early last week, and I hadn't heard back. Christy is in Nashville, and she's dealing with a field rep out here in our area. So we should come back with one of those three options, and I was hoping that they mentioned it to Robbie, but I know CTAS Legal wants to make sure their opinion is in line with what the comptroller wants, and they're not going to step on toes. But I'll remind her again in the morning if she can give me some written direction on this and a good legal opinion. They don't seem to really know, is the thing about it. They keep trying to say, well, it's similar to the drug fund. And I said, no, it's not similar to the drug fund. And so anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm sorry I don't have anything concrete for you on that, but I'm trusting that Kaylee will get back with Robbie and Christy will get back with me, and we'll come to some kind of final conclusion on this. But that's where we're at. How we ended up going to CTAS Legal on this is that Kaylee had given an opinion to Tyler that would go to Capital Improvement Fund. So that was a little bit contradictory to what our auditor, Amy Sauceville, told us. So we'll get this worked out, and I'll send you guys an email as soon as I know something definitive.
I want to throw one more while you're here so you don't have to make that
sure,
walk again.
Sure.
Last year before, the parks put in a number of new campground spaces. Could we have spent that out of tourism?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
So there are purposes that the commission can spend out of that, outside of the tourism board's
Of course.
decision?
The county commission is the ultimate budget authority. And as they've explained, CTAS has explained to me, there is no language in that private act that has these restrictions in it. They're just implicitly saying this is that, and they're sort of contradicting each other. But no, I believe that it's not like the drug fund. I believe those campsites could be paid for out of the tourism fund. In fact, Stephanie's done a lot of work at that park, and that's why it's such a beautiful location up there. You had something to do with the new ramps, didn't you?
I actually got the grant for
Right.
the campground and the dock.
If you haven't been up there lately, we got two of the best deep water ramps on the entire lake up there, and thank you for doing all that. But that's where we're at.
Okay.
Let me know if you have a specific question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hold on, did you have something?
I didn't know.
Well, I do. What about, we had a motion to rescind at one time, and it didn't pass, so I don't know if we even got a motion to second it, but we talked about the motion to rescind the sale of the building, and that's never been done. I think that was one of the mayor's points earlier.
We got a motion to surplus that's never been rescinded, or I think it's what it is.
So that building is still in surplus right now?
You'll need to change that at some point if you decide to stay there, but right now it is sort of in flux. You voted to surplus that building some time ago. Gosh, was that June?
I would have to go back and look at the original motion, but yes, I mean, it was a
It was
surplus,
June.
and it involved keeping the proceeds
Mm-hmm.
to purchase the new building.
Right.
So, however you want to look at the intent on that
You
motion.
did vote to surplus at that time.
Okay. Mr. Finance Director, do you have any input on any of this, or?
I mean, a couple of things I guess I could say. What Commissioner Yeager was discussing about the grant for the parks, which Stephanie did get, it was a tourism enhancement grant that the county matched for $75,000. And then by the time we got around to doing the project, the cost went up $203,000, which the county funded also, which I asked Audit tourism could pay for that, or could they reimburse the county general fund? And both answers were yes. So that is a project that, those kind of projects, the hotel motel tax, short-term rentals, which is what tourism fund benefits from that. So that's one of the reasons why, yes. So I did, Kaylee did come by, but we never discussed that kind of opinion. Honestly, she answered a few questions, and then we got involved in other discussions about other issues in the county. So, but I will, and Amy Soswell did give an opinion to me that that money should stay in the tourism fund, but she also always said too that unless your county law director could provide another opinion, which Jay's looking into that himself. So that's always a possibility. I mean, like he said, we don't know. I mean, we haven't been given any definite opinion on that. So,
and I know I've been told, so I don't know, is that the hotel motel tax that Clinton City gets, is they use that to help fund the street lights at the interstate?
It goes to the general fund per their ordinance and their private act.
yeah, I don't know that.
Do they have a private act, Jay, or is it an ordinance that they?
They adopted it by home rule. Remember, that's the one exception on the occupancy tax. Normal municipality can't do it, but a home rule can.
Okay.
Couple.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Is there any kind of audit risk of having it sit in surplus, having the building in surplus indefinitely? Do we need to act on that soon?
Not that I'm aware of. That would need to go back to the purchasing committee to, to change that or.
To rescind that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where we talked about it.
Right.
Was in purchasing.
I mean, any surplus goes through purchasing, or it should. That's what our policy states, so. And it's never came back to purchasing that I'm aware of, so.
So in other words, with county commission being the final say-so of everybody's budget, they could look at other ways to spend the money or make suggestions or?
Yes, I think that falls under the private act. Like Jay said, there's no law in our private act that says how we can spend the money, so, that I'm aware of.
I would have to go back and look at it, because I believe that it does say for tourism, promotion, or development, which development would fall under, but it's
Right.
not just.
Some capital projects, like for development, could be used with tourism, like the Parks project. Right. So that's a good example of, I mean, I think if you wanted to, if we built a baseball field or a softball field complex, that's something that brings in tourism and, people stay in hotels, stuff like that. Those kind of projects bring in money for the county, so, and tourism.
That was a tourism enhancement grant that the state did. They did them for 3 years in a row. The first year we applied for, you could only put in one application from a county. So even cities, we all got together, the cities and the counties had to decide on a project. So the first one was the 9th rolling lane, constructing that lane. The second one was for the ramp, and then the third one was for Anderson County Park. And Oak Ridge paid the match on their lane, so that's why we put it through the park system. The Conservation Board agreed to do that because it was Anderson County Park. It just so happens that we're both part of Anderson County government.
I have one more question, I guess for the mayor. Is there any way we could maybe have Roger look at the building and maybe come back to operations next month, or if he has already, maybe?
Yeah,
just
he
kinda
has looked
give
at the
us a
building. He's
report?
very familiar with our building. And he actually recommended the company that we use to do the mode inspection. I can make that available for you all. Just to the mayor's point, there's nothing right now at this point that the gentleman felt like we should evacuate the building, that it was of that nature. There's no active mold spores at this point. It does need to be cleaned up, but he suggested that the water source, whatever the water leakage is fixed first, or you're just gonna go back to having the same issues. So that's what, again, I can make that available to you all so that you know where that stands, but We are in the process of Servpro is coming tomorrow to look at it, and like I said, we're working with roofing companies. But Roger is, I mean, the mayor can add anything she wants to, but he's very familiar with our facility.
Yeah, we talked to the law director when we first found out about the mold issue, and you got right on getting somebody in to get that, because, you know, that's something that we really got to
We
look at.
definitely want to protect our employees and our visitors to make sure that we're not doing anything we shouldn't do.
Okay, and the next question was, who sets the hotel motel taxes?
That is set through our private act.
The amounts?
The 5%, yes, that was
Okay.
set through the private act.
So it's 5% of whatever the hotel motel charges per room?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a 5% addition, and just like sales tax is an addition. So if the rate's
Right.
$100, it's 5% plus 9.75 for sales tax.
Okay. And the ones at the interstate, the county gets all those, is that correct?
Yes, the county gets 5%. The city charges additional 3% that they receive.
Okay.
So that's the 7 hotels at the interstate. That's all, anything in the city of Oliver Springs, anything within the city of Norris, and anything within the city of Clinton that is a short-term rental. Cabin,
Okay.
campground, VRBO, Airbnb,
And that's one.
and the county. So
That's
it
one of the
ex-
things that we're taking up on, the planning commission too, is the short-term
Yes.
rentals and the VRBO, so you.
Yes,
you know,
just
I'll
about
make
every
sure that
city
you
has
get
passed
that.
an ordinance concerning short-term rentals. So, and I know that that's what the county is looking at also.
Yeah. So it'd
Why
be
don't we
really
get
important.
anything from Oak Ridge like we do the other?
Because they had their private act in place before the county did, and so did Rocky Top.
Okay. I've got another question. We did this adventure tourism district,
Yes.
okay? And we're gonna have some conversation here in a few minutes about something that's coming up. Do you remember what stipulations was for that? How many employees? Was it more than 20?
No, it's less than 20 for Anderson County, but they changed that a little bit, that formula, to be so many full-time employees and so many part-time employees.
Right.
And a certain amount of investment. And, but I mean, it's around that 15 to 20 number. And then it is a tax credit on the franchise excise tax. So one of the things that we found out during that process was, like the hotel, the new Hampton wanted to take advantage of that. They don't pay franchise excise tax. So it's a state tax credit that they would receive
Okay,
based on their structure of their company.
all right. So let's say a resort came in, going to employ a couple hundred employees.
They would
be-
qualify.
They would qualify.
If they're within that adventure tourism district, if they're liable for the franchise excise tax.
Okay,
And I think it's a $4,500 credit per employee.
all right. That's good to know, to remember. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Go ahead.
Well, one of the questions, and I don't know if you're done with the questions, but that I had proposed, and it was really just out of curiosity. Stephanie and I talked for quite a while last week about it, and just my report back was I was completely satisfied with. And just to remind everybody, the question was, would tourism be better served as a government entity or a government department or a standalone? And it sounds like, just from what research I did and then what, it sounds like that has been talked about at length. And so I was completely satisfied that the current way that it is structured is probably the best way. So I wanted to say that. The other part for me is, and I think I said this in our subcommittee meeting, but I kind of feel like that we're just beating around the bush, to be honest with you, when really maybe I've always thought, the fastest way from point A to point B is a straight line, and we talk about a lot of things, which I don't necessarily think this is the place to talk about. So if we've got questions on whether or not the tourism needs to spend part of her dollars on this development project or what have you, I definitely think that's a discussion that we have at the budget level and maybe commission. But really, I think that our purpose, at least my purpose for supporting Commissioner Palmer on the subcommittee was, does she need to be at the interstate? If not, then let's find a way. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's do what we can to help find a new location. And anything else in between, I think, is really just, it's a waste of time, just to be, with all due respect. I agree with the mayor. I don't, and I know Stephanie and I have talked about this, and we'll just have to agree to disagree, is she doesn't want to lease, and I understand that. There's people that are strongly passionate about it, but sometimes leasing is the better option. I would like for us to really dig into that area. I think that's really where, kind of why we exist, is to determine what is the most appropriate place for her. Is it, my takeaway was that the interstate was not the most appropriate place for her, and it's been my takeaway since September the 1st, since we got sworn in. But okay, if that's not the place for her, what is, and what do we need to do to get there? And I agree, I'm with the mayor as far as putting these, you know, do we lease, do we rent, what is it? What does it look like? What are all these options look like? And what is the end game? What does it look like at the very end? What is the most, you know, not just financially beneficial, but what makes most sense for Anderson County to grow? So I would like to see us kind of be in that direction only. I know other things will pop in and other things come into play, but you know, there's just certain things I don't know if the subcommittee or the operations, if that's even the appropriate venue to have those discussions.
Well, and just kind of my personal opinion on that too, of course, I would prefer to own, but I think that's going to continuously be a moving target. Like I said, I worked with a realtor to pull properties for sale and properties for lease, and right now there's 6 properties for lease in Anderson County, which would cost us anywhere from $16,000 a year to $41,000 a year. So I guess that's what I take into consideration when we look at leasing. We have a piece of property right now that we own. Could it bring more money on the tax roll? Yes, it could. I'm not going to argue that. But what would we spend? Would it equate to, if we took just rough numbers and said we could bring in $8,000 a year in property taxes, we would be spending $19,000 to $40,000 a year in lease payments. So I mean, that's a negative to me. So, and you know, could we find another piece of property that we could buy that would be the same exact price that we would sell? You know, that might be an option too, but that's always going to be a moving target. I mean, right now there might be 10 pieces of property for sale. Tomorrow there might be 2. I mean, that's something that we struggle with in county government just because of the way the process takes. Last process took a year.
Something that I would just add, and maybe to consider.
Sure.
And for all of us is to consider is, let's hypothetically say that the commission would have went with the chamber building. Everybody was in agreement that you were going to have to relocate somewhere for X amount of time. 18 months, I think was the number I remember. I would, if we're serious about not having it at the interstate, we've all kind of agreed, including Tourism Council, that you all would be willing to, you know, hang a shingle somewhere else for 18 months until we had a permanent solution. You know, so I would just like to consider maybe, if that is still an option, that gives us time to work on a plan that gives you time and the Tourism Council time. Because, you know, look, let's say if your lease is $20,000 a year, you're still looking at 40 years before you hit what you would even spent on building your new facility. And imagine all the different investments we could have made in those 40 years that, you know, so I just think that it's definitely worth looking at to whether or not we should lease or we should own.
Sure.
But-
And that's definitely something we could look at and run the numbers and see what would be more advantageous to the county. So I just think what was appealing to the opportunity with the chamber was it was a permanent place. There would have been a target at the end of the 18 months. You know, we don't know what that is at this point. It would be very unknown.
No, I totally understand.
yeah.
I think that's just something we should consider is that.
Sure, and I'll be happy to look, I'll be happy to get with the mayor and look at the process they're using.
And at the very
and look
least,
at-
too, heck, you may
at
be
different
looking for a
options.
new space anytime soon if that mold turns out to be anything that's something that you don't need to be in there for.
Sure. Well, and they ran all the tests. I mean, they brought their equipment and evaluated all of that, so,
The
But- and-
environment was okay to be in.
yes.
I still worry about that from a litigation standpoint,
Sure.
you know, just,
Well, again, we're going to try to mitigate that issue as soon as possible.
yeah, I would just, to err on the side of caution is, I don't know if Jay, I mean, you could work with, you know, if working with Jay on, however, that needs to protect us as a county, because I've seen it happen in Knox County and other places where a vendor's word just themselves wasn't good enough, and someone ended up, you know, coming down with some mold-related type illness, and then the county's on the hook for a substantial amount of money. So I would just like to throw that out there that
Sure.
maybe we really take a hard look at that one.
Yeah. Well, I'll forward that to you all tomorrow when I get back in the office and let Jay look at it and the mayor.
That's just what Commissioner Mays is talking about. UT's going to do that right now. They had an original study that said there's no active mold here, but it turned out it didn't. They got litigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's serious. I mean, it may be something we really need to address, and, you know, do we need to move out temporarily till we know?
When I first mentioned it to the mayor, she acted super quick. Roger out there, I mean, it was, I don't think it took 24 hours to get out there the first time to look at it. We also were concerned about the life safety measures, the handrail, things, but Roger was quick to get out there and get an expert, so, I feel safe that who he's working with. Servpro's got a lot of experience in this mold field, so, I just appreciate your concern. I'm always concerned.
Well, and I think when you see the report too, I don't think that'll answer some of your questions that you have. It did for me. I mean,
Would there be?
I didn't know what I was looking at either, so, but it gave us the information we
Would
needed.
there be any harm of relocating until the mold issues are corrected? I mean,
I don't know what kind of timeline we're dealing with. I was under the impression Servpro was going out there.
Yeah, they're coming out tomorrow. I'd have a better answer for you tomorrow. And we're going to have to not be there while they mitigate the mold
Yeah.
anyway, so I'll have a better answer for you tomorrow.
thank you so much.
I mean, that's the thing, you could probably work from home for a while.
Sure.
During that.
We've got concerns with the moisture that's got underneath the roof, and now it's starting to show on the trusses and the woodwork underneath it. And so we know we've probably got moisture underneath the tin roof.
And see, the situation as you see it now, and today it's not maybe in the air, but it could be in 30 days because it grows. So that's where you really got to.
And they tested the air quality, all of that. And all of the procedures that they went through are in this report, so.
And this is in your office, isn't it?
Yes.
Most of it, yeah.
Yes.
So, I would work from home if I was you. Any other questions or a direction?
Mr. Chairman, I guess, we've been here a long time tonight, so I know everyone's weary. And I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Mays. But I guess this is on the third listing of questions there. What is Commission's role as oversight of the tourism department what are we? Are we in fact just talking about the building, selling the building, or the other things that were brought to light, the other questions that were asked by this body, and also questions that were asked by our constituents? Where do we answer those? Who answers those? How do we, as you said, proceed? I know we listed all these questions. We talked about dividing them into 3 kind of categories, and then we were going to make recommendations to present to full commission. So maybe what we ought to do is look at these next questions, try to combine them maybe. Maybe there's some questions that we can scratch out.
Right.
Since we've already answered some of these. And maybe we can just take, for group 2 and group 3, the ones that maybe need an answer, and then we could better make a decision. I mean, I guess I'm asking for clarification as to what our role is as oversight. Because tourism does fall under county commission, and so it does seem like maybe these statutes, these private acts, the governance, all of that sort of thing, who's responsible for that? I know the tourism, I know we have a tourism board, there's lots of representation, but they really, as I've said before, they focus and target tourism, getting people into our county. These are things that, how it fits in, how this all works together with all of our other county departments. So I guess I hear what Commissioner Mays is saying. I agree with him. I'm satisfied with that if that's the desire of the commission. But I do think that these questions, the people that ask these questions deserve an answer. So how can we get an answer to them?
I see it as maybe what the direction is kind of like Commissioner Mays is, what do we do with the building? Do we sell it? Do we keep it? Whatsoever. And the other is the financial aspect.
Yes.
Like I think Robbie and Jay is looking into that. If it's sold, who controls the money? And then is there things on the on their budget that we could look at and make recommendations? Do you think you could spend money here?
So if we ask a question or it comes out of this committee, that maybe the money that was spent originally, that the finance director told us about reimbursing the county for that, for the park, those ramps. Maybe we can make a recommendation that be sent to the budget committee. Whether the profit is of the sale of the building goes to tourism, whenever we get that opinion, maybe we recommend that goes to the budget to take up. So I don't see this as being, I don't know. I don't know what, I guess I'm a little confused now as to the direction.
But one of the things
that
that
we
we'll
need
have
do.
to take up in purchasing is if we're going to rescind the surplus.
Right.
So that'd be a discussion for next month on purchasing, what we do there. And then in the
Right.
meantime, the finance director will be finding out some of these other questions about, as far as what you said about can their tourism bureau, which I'm sure they probably can, is reimbursed for what was spent out of the general fund or whatever code that was.
And even like what you brought up about the lights, I think that was one of the questions or one of the points to look at, is to look at other counties, look at other entities, how are they spending tourism dollars,
Right.
And so, I haven't really looked at anything like that because it wasn't in 1 or 2, so, that's an exercise perhaps we do need to do to give us some ideas. I heard you say when the ball field was mentioned, so that kind of gets you to thinking about other things that maybe we can do. So that's one of the questions on here in group 3, I think, or maybe 2. But maybe what we need to do is just look at these questions instead of going to each one.
Yeah.
Pick out the ones that we haven't discussed, because we've had quite a bit of conversation about, and, we may already have some recommendations we want to make.
Well, I knew when we had this meeting that things would change about as far
Yes.
as the questions and the answers and all that, which would lead maybe to an entirely different set of questions, and I think that's where we're at. So I think if we take a few days and then send it into, everybody can send in their questions to Stephanie, and she'll be prepared to answer it next week,
Okay.
to the law director and the finance director and the mayor.
Okay.
And I think we move forward that way. But I agree with what Commissioner Mays is talking about. And then, as far as like the interstate lights, this next subject we're going to take up, and we have to do it vaguely, because there's a lot of confidential information involved in this that we can't speak about. But the interstate lights at the Rocky Top area is going to be very influential in
Sure,
maybe some of this.
sure. I
And,
think
you know,
the
that'll be-
conversation is worth having. It's just, I know we're weary, and perhaps we can expedite a little bit, or combine some things, or strike out some of these questions on 2 and 3, and maybe move it along a little faster. I don't know. That's just, but I would like,
I just want to say, I mean, I'm good with any of this. I just don't want tourism of the county to start pouring a lot of money into a building if we're getting ready to soup that up for somebody to come bulldoze it for a restaurant. You know, I don't want to get into that, but that's just kind of where I have a little sense of urgency.
Sure.
That's about it.
Okay. All right, anything else? So what we're going to do, if you got any questions here next week or so, send them to Stephanie, the mayor, Jay, and
Yeah,
And-
Commissioner Palmer, you're welcome to send me any legal issues.
okay,
I'll
yeah,
be glad to answer.
all right. Well, I haven't looked that far ahead yet.
Feel free to do so.
Okay.
I guess just so that I know, is this something that we're going to come back at next operations meeting and have a
yeah,
public?
you'll have another set of questions, more pertinent, that's based from this
Just
tonight's meeting.
kind of reevaluating page 2 and 3 and trying to
Yeah.
condense it maybe down to
Yeah,
one.
Because I think some of these questions have already been answered.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and we can probably finish this up next month.
Mhm. I
Okay,
think so.
Yeah,
okay, great, thank you.
thank you very much.
Mhm.
Let's see. Next is, under new business, there's a resolution that you have in your packet. And you'll notice that some of this information is very confidential. And, we can't disclose that because that could be harmful to this whole thing working. And Jay's put together a resolution.
It's about as generic as it comes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I tried to give y'all an email with some more specific facts. Does everybody have a copy of this? I sent an email. I've got some hard copies here. Steve, you got a hard copy? I got it. Okay. Mayor, you need a hard copy? Okay.
Do you have one, Stephanie?
I do not have a copy of the resolution. Oh, you didn't email it to me, sorry.
That's okay. It's no problem. This is what we got. We contacted late last week on Friday, by our largest landowner in this county. And, we don't get a lot of calls from this man, but when, our relationship changed years ago when Tim and I took a visit to see his dad. And at that point, they understood our need out here. They've been in a protracted litigation with the county for about 8 years over the same road with David Stewart when he was the county attorney. And I think Mr. Howard Sr. respected what Tim and I had to say to him. And he's long gone, but he's passed, I think, some directives to his son. And we've been able to work very closely again, and we appreciate that. We got Slate Stone Road for $10, and that was an incredible deal for all those people. When we needed the land for the Beech Grove Bridge, is a phone call, a couple emails, drafted a deed, they signed it, no problem. Well, he called for our help last Friday, and he's got a large-scale outdoor-themed resort on the hook, and they're looking at Anderson County. This is a serious business. It's a lot of employees there. I sent you a couple of links to what some of the original ones are looking like. There's various investors regionally on this. We know who our investors are,
and they're coming to look at a couple locations in Anderson County. One of them in the Oliver Springs area, one of them in the Rocky Top area. But he asked me for some help, and I think we owe it to him. He's done a whole lot for us. The company's done a whole lot for us over the past 100 years. And we're going to put him in play with the people that make decisions here, including the county commission, the IDB, and people like that, and the water authority that may be able to assist him with some of this. But I've got a generic resolution for you, and you'll just have to kind of fill in with the confidential email that I sent you what this is about. But it's basically all this is natural resource themed, and hey, there is no better place in this area than Anderson County for natural resources. I can just go on and on. I could write a 3-page resolution on this. I got some information on Windrock Mountain that would take up a whole page of what they do down there, not to mention the fishing, the hiking, and everything else in this county, all the water sports at the lakes. And found out today that the state record muskie was caught out of Melton Hill Lake, a monster. I couldn't believe that. And the state record brown trout was caught out of the Clinch. And if you see that, 28-pound brown trout. I don't think I've ever caught anything more than 2.5 pounds or something. I remember years ago, ESPN2, remember that years ago, came down the Clinch River and they caught like a 12-pounder, and I said, that's got to be a state record. Well, lo and behold, it's not even close. But can you imagine a 28-pound brown trout in the Clinch River? Well, it was there. But anyway, this is going to be where visitors that are serious about outdoor locations, whether it be rock climbing, hiking, off-road motor vehicles, come to take an outdoor vacation. And this company is putting together regional locations, and we're in the final running right here in Anderson County, and I think we've got a lot to offer. I know we do. If you've been here in this county long at all, you know that one thing we've got is definite natural resources. It's a beautiful county. If you ever get a chance to travel up to the top of Windrock Mountain or some of the ridges up there, you won't believe the views. It's just breathtaking up there. It really is. But anyway, I put together a real brief generic resolution for you to consider. Really doesn't do anything, put us on the hook, except for the fact that if chosen, if we are chosen, then we'll start the wheels rolling at that time. But as far as a commitment letter, this is about as close as we can come to a commitment letter. If we're chosen, we're ready to help any way we possibly can. And that's with compliance issues and whatever we need to do. But we'll work with our partners that have worked well with us before, and Water Authority, IDB, all these folks, Tourism Chamber, and all these folks that have helped us for years. And we'll try to put them all together and help this gentleman. Any questions on this project?
You know, as I've always promoted, you know, the 2 exits, and so has the tourism district. And it's always been said that, you know, we're a diamond in the rough.
Absolutely.
And everybody that's looked at that, and even when we had the prior people that was looking to do a resort, it was because you had so many natural resources. You've got the lake, you've got Clinch River, you've got Windrock Mountain. It's all about adventure tourism. And, you know, the tourism director can tell you how important that Norris Lake, the Clinch, and Windrock is to the tourism, and to how much the return on investment is there. And this is a perfect fit for, you know, the city of Rocky Top, and it being right there at the interstate. And even with the name, when you know more about this, the branding will be very sufficient. Is it okay just to read this resolution?
Yeah, I wanted to, while it's on my mind, sometimes my mind's not as sharp as it used to be, but this has nothing to do with Norris Dam State Park.
No.
Okay, that was a sidetracked issue before. Has absolutely nothing. It's all going to be on private land and not state park land. And the other issue is they want it inside Anderson County. Okay, that's told directly to me. So go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
All right.
I just had a quick question.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
meant to ask this before. Windrock, is all of that located in Anderson County?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It's located in Roan, a little bit of it,
All right.
Morgan. Actually, it goes up into Scott just barely.
Okay.
But most of the trails that you see there, the 73,000 acres and 300 miles of trails, are in Anderson County. It
Okay.
connects up there to Royal Blue and
just keep going up there for long ways, almost to the Kentucky state line. I actually forgot to put the train in here, the tourism train we've been trying to get off. But, a lot going on there.
But this is just the part of it that that's in Anderson County?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
And-
It's
and-
an Anderson County project.
okay.
And what this tourism has done for the New River area is just phenomenal, just on that small scale.
And what he's talking about is, the county has been blessed to be able to get the General Assembly to pass several, we started as a private act, and now they're putting exceptions into the statute. But we've got places in our county where you can ride off-road motor vehicles on city streets. We first did that up in Rocky Top years ago. That was copied statewide. Then we went down to, we've done 2, is it Stephanie, down in Oliver Springs? And then we've done 116, and it's pretty much all the way back up the road is free for these people to get out and get gas, get restaurant fuel, whatever they need now. It's a lot better, and that keeps the business here. And we like that a lot. It's worked out great. But
Okay, I would like for Commissioner Val to read the resolution.
okay. Well, he's a great speaker.
It's kind of exciting. I don't know if I can keep my voice from trembling or not.
That's why.
Yeah. Whereas Anderson County has recently been approached about the possibility of a large-scale outdoor-themed resort located inside the boundaries of our county. And whereas Anderson County is blessed with the perfect blend of natural resources to showcase to any prospective developer wanting to construct an outdoor-themed resort. And whereas from the beautiful mountain vistas to the tranquil waters of Norris and Melton Lakes to the rolling waters of the mighty Clinch River, Anderson County has all the traits needed to guarantee success for any outdoor-themed resort. And whereas Anderson County is home to the magnificent Winrock Mountain, the nation's premier location for off-road recreational vehicle enthusiasts, with over 73,000 acres and 300 miles of trails, Winrock offers extreme fun to visitors wanting to experience mountain bike courses and trails for a variety of outdoor recreational vehicles and all skill levels. And whereas our county offers some of the best water sport adventures in the region, Norris Lake has over 800 miles of shoreline and is home to a variety of water sports including boating, kayaking, jet ski, and some of the best bass fishing in the South. Melton Lake has over 173 miles of shoreline and supports all types of fishing from bluegill, crappie, bass, and walleye. The Tennessee state record for muskie was caught on Melton Hill Lake with a weight of 43 pounds, 14 ounces. The Rolling Clinch River is known as one of the preeminent trout fisheries in the United States. I told you I was excited. In the United States, well stocked with brown rainbow and brook trout. The Tennessee state record for brown trout belongs to the Clinch River at a whopping size of 28 pounds, 12 ounces. And whereas Anderson County is the perfect location for an outdoor themed resort having all the pristine natural resources needed to attract any outdoor enthusiast. Now therefore be it resolved by the Anderson County Board of Commissioners meeting in regular session this 21st day of February 2023 that we are proud to be in consideration for this unique resort venue, and we believe Anderson County is the perfect location for an outdoor themed resort. If chosen for this rare and exciting opportunity, we agree to partner and assist the developer and landowner with all local governmental permitting and compliance issues, as well as needed infrastructure and other requested governmental services and tax incentives.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion, and Annette, will you reflect in the minutes that Chairman Isbell handed the gavel over to me? Got a motion by Commissioner Isbell. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Varon. Any discussion? Mayor Frank.
I love this. However, I would like to also be able to sign it. And so I haven't gotten to completely think it out. But the last sentence there, if if you could strike that last sentence and maybe change it to something like, and we look forward to partnering with the developer or landowner. And I know it's not a precise commitment, but nevertheless, it does not, when we say we agree to partner and assist with permitting and compliance, infrastructure, government services, and incentives, that's a pretty open-ended agreement. And, you know, you're going to want to have citizens, you know, have input in public hearing. We don't know what the full infrastructure needs are. And I think Anderson County has, if they're wanting to come here, they see a strong record of working with people. I mean, we don't have our industrial parks full for no reason. I mean, we've got Ishan, Magna, SL, the list goes on. But I just think I would like my signature on here, but that one sentence, if you wouldn't mind just adjusting that. I mean, that's at your discretion.
I'd like to amend my
I agree with
motion.
you to some extent, Mayor, and I'll be glad to do what this body wants me to do, but a couple of things on that last sentence, and I've toyed with it. First of all, it says, if chosen, it's conditional, okay? And then it says, okay, it goes into the permitting, compliance issues, as well as needed infrastructure and other requested governmental services and tax incentives. We do this for every business that comes in here. S&L, Ison, they all had tax breaks, they all had tax incentives. And this is not simply a statement that we're gonna do it, okay? Like when people call my office and ask about that, I refer them to the IDB. Let them make the call. Okay, we have our own rules and regulations for IDB. It's PILTs, TIFs, it's not free money. There's a matrix that qualifies for the PILT. You gotta bring in so many jobs. You gotta have a certain size plant, square footage. We're not agreeing to waive our regulations, and we're not agreeing to do anything different than what we do for any other business coming into this county. And we've got yes, it's true, we've got a strong history of this. But the reason we got some of these big plants up here at the interstate and across this county is help them the way we have in the past. This is not a guarantee, not at all, but I do want Terry's signature on this. You know, it hurts when I send a resolution down that she doesn't sign. It's a big message, just like that TDOT resolution, but if that's what you want to strike this entire thing, they wanted a commitment letter. This is nowhere near a commitment letter, and I thought this was something to appease both sides and let them know we're interested in this. But whatever you want me to do, I'll do. It's your resolution, and I'm simply the worker here.
What do you suggest?
She wants to strike the entire last sentence, I guess, from if chosen, all the way down to the period. We agree to partner, okay, and assist them. She didn't have a problem with the word partner, and assist the developer and landowner with local governmental permitting and compliance issues. We do this to businesses every day that come in and to planning and zoning, as well as needed infrastructure and other requested governmental services and tax incentives. They all have procedures and protocol that we've adopted years before that are in place right now. And if you know, we have very, very few PILT payments left on our matrix. Not many at all. But Terry, is there any way you'll work with me and maybe give me some ideas and let me work together and to come back with something that you're satisfied with other than striking the entire last sentence?
And I don't want to be argumentative, and I
No, I
hate
don't either.
even standing up here being in this position. I really do. I have been a part of numerous locations and working with various entities and agencies. And yes, there are times when things are proprietary. You call projects by a project name. It may be Project Diamond or Project this. But at the end of the day, the details are actually there and folks see it. So I'm at 5 o'clock being told this is what the resolution is, which I did not receive until 5:44 after the intergovernmental meeting. I don't have details. It does say, if chosen, we agree. And that is a pretty open-ended, I mean, I don't understand. I hear what you're saying, but then you just use the terminology, they asked for a commitment letter.
And I didn't give them a commitment letter.
So we're doing this, and I mean, there are all of those tools, yes, available in Anderson County, but I mean, I just, as the mayor, have a fiduciary responsibility, and it doesn't matter how much I love something, I still have to, I will go out, I will fish, I will do whatever to show that I want to bring these people to Anderson County, but I just can't sign with that language as it is. And if
I'll go ahead and.
I'll be happy to copy a letter and copy everything in here without that last sentence and sign it and send it
Well,
to
will you
the
give me
folks.
some options on this last sentence? Will you sit down and say, look, I like this better? The reason on the timeline is we've got the 2 financial investors coming here in the next week to 2 weeks to look at these 2 sites. This is the last county commission meeting. When I heard about this Friday, and I was requested, you know the details, you know as many details as I've got, and I put it to you in that confidential email. But when I heard about this, I immediately contacted the chairman, because I knew we had operations. This is perfect for the operations committee to come up, ask him if I could do a resolution. He gave me the authority to do a resolution. We need to get something out there that says we want this project. We'll do what we can, just like any other business in this county that's new to this county. Nothing different, exactly what we do for anybody else. And I want it to be somewhat strongly worded that we're behind this project. This is a project that brings not only real estate property tax, personal property tax, occupancy tax, business tax, sales tax, gas tax, not to mention several hundred jobs to an area, to 2 areas that don't have a lot of jobs, good jobs. And that's how strongly I feel about it. But I'll do whatever you want me to do, but when you take some of this stuff out, it's watering it down.
As maker of the motion, I definitely want the mayor to be able to sign it. And maybe if we send it on to full commission for maybe change between now and Monday.
What about entertaining, ending the sentence at compliance issues? Any thoughts about that, Mayor? We get some of the stuff in, that kind of limits our details.
You know, from what, although I haven't dealt with that developer firsthand, but some of his close confidence, or their close confidence I have. And dealing with those, once you know who this is, you'd understand. I mean, they want a definite that this is what we're going to do, but we got to word this thing too, where the mayor agrees to it.
Well, let me take a shot at modifying this language, toning it down, and maybe I'll work with the mayor and see if she's open to something else. But that last sentence is really what this whole resolution is about.
If you change it from we agree to our intent is to partner and assist the developer, is that agreeable?
That's fine. It's whatever you guys want to do. You understand my concerns of getting this out, having it done, signed, 2 weeks, and I certainly don't want to see.
And that's why I brought up about the Adventure Tourism District, because this will definitely fall into that, which will give them another incentive that we can offer in Anderson County that a lot of other people can't. But, you know, the way I understand it, they definitely want to be in Anderson County.
Yes, sir, you are correct.
Yeah. Whether it's on the Rocky Top side or the Oliver Springs side.
And that's because we're much more developed than the counties to the north of us for this kind of thing. we do have infrastructure that's gonna be needed here.
Okay.
So your motion is recommending it to full commission pending the mayor and law director getting
Yes.
together and working out the last
Mhm.
paragraph?
Yeah.
Seconded by Commissioner Barron.
Mr. Chairman, so the new resolution will come out in our packet. We'll be able to look at it and everything before we vote next Monday.
Oh, certainly.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah. All we're doing is sending it to full commission with
Full
recommendation.
commission. Okay. I just want to make sure what the motion was.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Unanimous.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is exciting news for Anderson County, period. You know, something that we've looked for, and I think that once people can finally know who the players are in this, they'll have a little bit better feeling about it and, you know, reassurance. Any other business to come before this committee? It's been a long meeting, and I appreciate everybody's time. Appreciate the finance director being here for everything. I mean, it's very beneficial. Maybe he wants to come to all of our meetings. And nothing else to come before this committee. We're adjourned. Thank you.